Good evening. This is the April 21, 2015 regular meeting of the Planning Board of the Township of Bernards. Please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Law of 1975, notice of this meeting of the Planning Board of the Township of Bernards was posted on the bulletin board in the reception hall of the Municipal Building, Collier Lane, Basking Ridge, New Jersey. It was sent to the Bernardsville News, Bernardsville, New Jersey, to the Courier News, Bridgewater, New Jersey, on January 12, 2015, and was electronically mailed to all those people who have requested individual notice. The following procedure has been adopted by the Bernards Township Planning Board. There will be no new cases heard after 10 p.m., and no new witnesses or testimony will be heard after 10:30 p.m. Fran, roll call, please.
Ms. Alper. Here. Mr. Carlucci.
Here.
Mr. Hagan.
Here.
Ms. Kleiner.
Here.
Mr. Millay.
Here.
Ms. Pavlini.
Here.
Ms. Pedici.
Here.
Mr. Santoro.
Here.
Ms. Axt.
Here.
Mr. Harris.
Here.
Mr. Plaza.
Here. Okay, next item on the agenda is the approval of two sets of minutes. The first being the February 3, 2015 regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes for the February 3rd, 2015 meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Santoro. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Kleiner. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Fran, roll call, please.
Ms. Alper.
Yes.
Mr. Carlucci.
Yes.
Mr. Hagan was absent. Ms. Kleiner.
Yes.
Mr. Millay.
Yes.
Ms. Pavlini.
Abstain.
Ms. Pedici.
Yes.
Mr. Santoro.
Yes.
Ms. Axt.
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Plaza.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, the next minutes are those from the February 3, 2015 closed session. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the minutes for the closed session of February 3rd, 2015.
Thank you, Mr. Santoro. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Pedici. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, Fran, roll call, please.
Ms. Alper.
Yes.
Mr. Carlucci.
Yes.
Ms. Kleiner.
Yes.
Ms. Pedici.
Yes.
Mr. Santoro.
Yes.
Ms. Axt.
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Plaza.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is the approval of charges against escrow accounts. Tonight we're considering those of Jonathan Drill, Esquire, March 2015, EKA Associates, March 16 through 31, 2015, and John Bellardo, Esquire, March 2015. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the charges against escrow as just stated.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Santoro. Any discussion on that motion?
Just a brief question for Fran on the negative balance on two different ones.
I have sent a letter, and they are coming back for a meeting, and that they have a negative balance, they cannot be heard.
That's Val.
Yeah.
Okay, and what about Verizon?
They have also been sent a letter. I just, did you see the date? I just got that bill yesterday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Santoro. Any further discussion or question on the motion? Seeing none, roll call, please, Fran.
Ms. Alper.
Yes.
Mr. Carlucci.
Yes.
Mr. Hagan.
Yes.
Ms. Kleiner.
Yes.
Mr. Millay.
Yes.
Ms. Pavlini.
Abstain.
Ms. Pedici.
Yes.
Mr. Santoro.
Yes.
Mr. Plaza.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the continued public hearing, Islamic Society of Basking Ridge, Inc., PB 12-001, Block 9301, Lot 2, 124 Church Street, preliminary and final site plan approval. As we begin that matter?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Millay. Mr. Carlucci. Anyone else? Mr. Harris? We'll all be leaving the dais as they are not eligible on the application. We'll give them a moment. Okay, we're continuing now with the public comment section of the application, and we're just going to restate that which was put on the record at the last meeting, just for the benefit of all those in attendance and those who may not have been here the last time. This is the continuation of the hearing on the Islamic Society of Basking Ridge application for construction of a mosque on Block 9301, Lot 2, known as 124 Church Street. Tonight, we are in the portion of the hearing which is known as the public comment portion. For the public's benefit, so that everyone will to the manner in which the planning board is required to proceed and previously which was then followed by the objector's evidence and testimony, followed by the objector's evidence and recognize public comments. So the way this will proceed, that person will then be sworn and testify to the facts which or just have comments. Will then also, the board rules state that the board may exclude irrelevant in that regard. Be present has a voice, and that the whole purpose is so that the board can hear what is on the public's mind. Just react audibly. And emotional sentiment. So we do ask that everybody be respectful, and in so doing, you will be given the opportunity to be heard if you want to be. Testimony, and that testimony, as well as any exhibit, must application. The board on Church Street. Neither of those Church Street and sewer capacity or hookups, because they are we ask that you place your name and address printed in preparing accurate minutes later. Your patience in allowing me to put that statement on the record, and at this Sure, Mr. Sins.
And everything went very smooth. As far as the board, we could hear everyone clearly. Continue tonight. There's one point. Last meeting, it was very hard to. We still have a couple things to take care of. And if you want to leave, please leave quietly.
I'm sure the board echoes those sentiments. Does anybody else have anything before we begin? Okay, then, based on where we were procedurally last time, Mrs. Quick, I think you were in the ready, but time permitted you from going, so you can be first up this evening.
Yeah, give me a minute. Thank you. Just to say, since last June.
Identify yourself.
Has to be in charge of turning that on at the beginning of the meeting.
It's on. It's on. It's on.
Just to play it safe, I'm going to swear you in again. Can you identify yourself?
Loretta Quick of 114 Church Street, Liberty Corner.
And can you raise your right hand? And do you swear that the testimony that you'll be giving in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
So help me God.
You do.
I do. Mr. Plaza, I've been ready for this since last June, and I just discovered it. Old PowerPoint in for presentation tonight. However, I am ready to make adjustments. I can use more than half of it and just run through it. But I have 4 copies, as you directed me, Mr. Drill, to bring of the PowerPoint, and it's of my new presentation. So I can either have my husband cover a few pictures later on down in these hearings if they should go past tonight, or I can just address what I do have. It's about 4 different topics that are pictured on here, but not on this PowerPoint.
Would it not be your not go then and be in a position to have your revised PowerPoint loaded up and ready to go? It's your preference. I just don't want you to feel because you stated you were ready the last time that you have to go now. You have waited a long time, so.
What if this concludes tonight? I think that was my foremost concern.
Then why don't you step back for now? We'll see how things are going. If you're going to be the last one, based on the show of hands last time, I don't think that's going to be the case. But then we would let you go at that point, and you can make your presentation based on what you have. Okay. Otherwise, hearing what you just said, I would hate for you to feel like you have to go and have everything that you've worked so hard to prepare. So
okay.
We'll work with you on that.
Assuming that you don't end up going tonight, obviously, contact David Schley tomorrow to remove the old PowerPoint. And just for anyone, if you want anything shown here, the IT department has to screen it first to make sure there are no viruses. But you don't have to submit it way in advance. I think that, what's the minimum, how many days in advance, Fran?
I believe he can take it about 20, well, we'd like it a day and a half before.
Let's say 48 hours in advance, and just, if you submit it more than 7 days in advance, an argument could be made that it's a public record and anyone can open it. So if you don't want anyone to be able to see it before you show it, the hearing. 2 days to get your understands anything submitted clearance through IT. So if everyone understands what I'm saying, weeks in advance, that's your prerogative, but if you do, don't complain. And in prerogative.
Sir?
So identify yourself for the record.
Okay, sorry. Paul Zubulake,
Spell it slowly, please.
Z-U-B-U-L-A-K-E, 82 Church Street.
Okay, could you the whole truth, nothing but that's it.
Has been using? We want the site plan? Site plan.
Tom Quinn is going to fill in logical equipment tonight.
Once we got logged in, we're good. All right, so.
Latest.
All right, I'm not sure which.
The one that actually shows the back of the that is not being used. That's the
This guy?
well, okay. That's good enough. Yeah, George. Yeah, I can slide it around, right?
Yeah.
I kind of know how to use one of these things, I hope, right? Oh, there you go.
Hey, France, is that microphone picking up the voice?
Well, he wasn't talking directly into it before, so.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. I'm not gonna- I just love this picture. It sells it all. Sells it all.
We see the revision, right-hand corner. Can I see the revision box at the upper right?
I'm sorry.
Okay, here, can you read that?
Oh, no, thanks.
So this is. That's not the latest. 9914, what is that? That's not the latest version of
So
C.
let's get, what's the latest
So can
version?
you tell me what it is? December 8th.
This is a group effort.
So he's got.
So you're going to go all the way down. Just
Again, this is Tom Quinn's first night using the equipment. Dave
I think they know that, John.
I'm defending him.
Mr. Quinn, how would they know that Mr. Drills only said it 3 times?
can't read that.
I don't know.
Steve did it. Yeah, 14.
You didn't know this was going to be a
That might be too
Yeah.
deep. There you go. Yep, just to make sure.
And Mr. Raymar, do we have the right plan up there?
Yeah.
Can you just-
Let's identify it for the
Okay,
record.
we're at 12/8/14.
In what sheet?
This is sheet. 03. Yes, correct, CO3.
Let's just see it.
CO3.
Site.
All right, back to something.
looking at this plan and using a professional increases an inappropriate piece of land for this project. And felt was a little out of line, but that's okay. It's my opinion. They do have a process. This application can't just walk in sign this application. People need to know. Guess what? You can talk about the decision that was made to make traffic irrelevant. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just going to vehemently disagree with that. Look at the I live in Bernards Township. I guess they plow that road, and they do a pretty good. To me, it's amazing. Looked at this situation and said, because of, I don't want to say it's a technicality, I mean, you know this better than me, Stewart Committee establishes a permitted use. Okay. So, it's amazing. The county doesn't have any public comment them and speaking about the traffic, because luckily I grew up in a household where my father ran traffic safety in Nassau County, New York. I'm going to be speaking to the county. Without traffic lights on Church Street. Really appreciate it. We've had many plans, right? Applicant wanted to build a few feet away from the Quicks and the Abate's property. Luckily, cooler heads prevailed. Let's get the buffers proper. Let's squeeze this thing as best as we can into this. So here we are today with the diagram. I know no one wants to hear about this, but it's a public comment. What's this back here, right? This is just land. All right. I know the ordinance is out there. We all love this ordinance. 3 acres, right, I believe is the number. We know that this property is over that. It's 4 acres plus. We also know that there's unusable property, right? It's gas line, wetlands. We can't see it. We know when ordinances are written, they have acreage mentioned in the ordinances. Why do they have acreage, right? Why do they have acreage in ordinances? Common sense. And Mr. Steck testified on this. To me, I actually asked him, isn't it common sense that acreage is put on ordinances because the major majority of the property is usable? So if you did have this large piece of land on our residential block, maybe this project could actually fit in where it wasn't a safety hazard to the public. Else 2.4 acres usable land. That's the good news, right? where it's now public entrance and it's not public entrance. Who's going to enforce these type of situations on the compliance side on this piece of property? No one's going to comply. Another thing, compact spaces, right? All in here. This is incredible, the amount. See, I have an SUV. Everybody in this, the people who are going to use this facility, they're going to have Mini Coopers, I guess, right? So that's a great news. So all of these are compacts. Okay. We work our I know the fire department did a fantastic job showing how dangerous it is to fight a fire on this piece of property. He's concerned about the safety of his crew and the people who are in the property. Good for him. Coming back in here, we had the great how the fire trucks could fit. Now this picture unfortunately doesn't show it. There's a great diagram. It's like the spaghetti lines, right? Made over here by like 1/4 of an inch, if I remember correctly, something like that. So we decided that it's still okay. That works. The truck can fit in. All right, interesting. I've been making lots in my life. Driveway, like a little driveway that, guess what? When it snows, what happens when it snows? I got to plow it. When it snows like it did the last 2 years, what happens? I have 4 spots in my driveway, it turns into 2, right? Snows overnight, 2 in the morning, 6 a.m. This lot is going to be trucks removing snow at 6 in the morning. We have no idea. That hasn't been discussed. What's going to happen? They're going to plow the snow. And what are they going to do? It's going to build up in all these parking spots. And our little Mini Coopers, who obviously can't handle the snow, will all be parked over here, right? So what's going to happen, the extra room that we have that truck to get through, in the wintertime, good luck getting that truck through, because you know what's going to happen. No one's going to comply with these ordinances regarding the spots, and they're going to have an issue there. I'd like to have the board look at that more clearly. Another thing, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, is that these spaces, we had testimony on that, the car hanging over, so we have to reduce the spaces. And I believe they have to get an exception to reduce the space. Is that correct? Am I allowed to ask questions? Or wasn't that part of the, that these spaces here, to get these the length to make it within the ordinance, they would actually have to get an exception for these spaces to be smaller. No? I'm wrong about that?
I believe you're correct about that.
Okay. Right? Can I ask the experts? I'm sorry, can the experts
Yes.
respond?
It's public comment. It's not.
I was just saying, you could refuse.
Very well. I'll
Okay.
refrain from making any comments.
Okay, so we just got confirmation that the applicant needs an exception for this property that is so small. That's why they need an exception. Case closed. Should be ruled down even on that. Why do they deserve any exceptions? All right. Mr. Khan, he testified that people are going to visit this property during lunch. Okay, great. They live from all over New Jersey. That's great. They can come for lunch. His words, not mine. They're going to rush in, pray, and then they're going to rush out. That's another great thing. I can't wait for that, for the rushing in and the rushing out. That's when, because we always have these rotating amount of people coming in here. My other favorite part of this design is this baby. Now, we can talk about this, right, because it's inside. It's traffic circulation. You can object. Why do I have to listen? We can talk about this. This design and one exit. About that street, but I can't. I won't. Mr. said, I believe he said 7 cars, I'm sure they're compacts, can fit in this spot. I have not measured it, sorry. So you're going to have 7 here, and then you're going to have 7 here that are going to potentially turn right. At the same time, so we believe there's reason could be 7 days a week. We have no idea. We haven't been told. 100 cars, hypothetically. I'll go with 70 cars. Okay. 56 cars are going to have to get out of this facility one way. That's it. So what's going to happen? They're going to queue up, folks. That's what's going to happen. What do people do when they're in a queued up lot? You ever go to a baseball game when it's packed after and trying to get the heck out of there? You do crazy stuff, right? They're all going to be queuing up, all in here, back in here. Maybe the Mini Coopers will wait till the end. And then they're going to try to get out of here. And what's going to happen, like I said, they're going to queue up. And what do queuing cars do? What do they emit? Pollution. I live north of here. The poor people live next door, the Quicks. They live right here. So we're going to have potentially nonstop, right? Because we have not been told how there's no restrictions on this facility. It can be used as much as possible, any times at night. All we have is we'll comply, we'll comply. Well, this pollution that is going to be created on this site. You cannot argue this point. It is ridiculous. There will be for them to exit. And us in the community. Unfortunately, it's going to probably end up being a lawsuit. No matter what happens here or at the county level, hopefully cooler heads prevail and it's the right thing. I can't imagine a situation is going to go to a lawsuit and at the same time the public, including myself, has to hire private attorneys to sue the township. So I'm going to basically be suing myself, right? Because that's what's happening. And everybody in this room, we're going to be, if the board rules to go ahead with this, and the county doesn't say no, it's obviously stuff people have talked about. I guess supposedly there's a traffic safety engineer that's going to be hired by the applicant. Again, compliance on this whole situation. Can they comply? Who is going to be checking on these things? who is going to be checking if the traffic safety person is competent or just a parent or whoever, and they know what they're actually doing? And in case there is an emergency, do they really know what they're doing? Compliant, who is going to deal with that? As firemen. Looks at this situation and thinks of the people in the community who are the ones who are going to suffer from this particular situation. Try to put yourself in our position. Put yourself in our position. You know, when I bought a house on Church Street, which is also known as Route 512, I didn't think that 512 would be like Route 22. And this
So like, if you sat back on this, if you sat in front of Jeff. Right, but where would you put it?
Test, test.
Let's ask him if it's possible.
We are testing, folks. I don't think we're back on quite yet, but we are testing to see how the system works.
Are we still testing? Oh, you're running a diagnostic?
Yeah, he's running a diagnostic, so I would suggest, just let me say test into this and don't say anything else. I mean, I'd love to start giving a lecture at this point, but, yeah, we want to hear about the 18th century.
I suggest you count numbers.
I'd rather hear about the 18th century.
We could talk about General Charles Lee.
Captured here, that's the
Well, right now, I don't know if we're broadcasting, but yes, they asked us to put everything on, so. Let me go and find Denise.
I'll call her.
Just, we're not back on the record officially. We are broadcasting, so be mindful of that. But I appreciate the quiet, but you can feel free to talk until we call the meeting back to order.
Denise, Fran would like some clarification as to
what our status is. We are. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
When Mr. Joel returns,
Good to go.
we just need Mr. Oh, there's Mr. Joel right there. Okay.
That's what you found out too.
All right, we're back on the record. Any other member of the public wishing to comment? Mr. Abate, sir, coming forward.
Joseph Abate, 485 Somerville Road, Basking Ridge, New Jersey.
Raise your right hand. You swear the testimony that you'll be giving will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. Fran, this microphone or that microphone? Just in the middle?
Now, pick one. That one seems to be working. Just pick it.
Testing.
Whichever one you're closest to. That's
Okay, thank you. Well, I too wish to thank the board for 3 years of arduous deliberation and questioning and looking out for us neighbors best you can. I also really want to thank publicly the ISBR for taking into consideration all of the things I've asked them to look at over the past 3 years. And they've done their best to try to twist it a little bit to make it happen a little bit better for my family and I, the best they can. But the fact remains, the best they can is probably not good enough, because the reality of it all is that we're going from a residential home to a house of assembly. And we're going from a little old couple who once lived there to 107 parking spots that potentially can be filled all the time, every day, 5 times a day. I just want to let everyone know that I have a complete new respect for the people that I live among in this town. They are brilliant, educated, driven, wholesome people. And Dr. Chaudhry, you're included. However, we have to find a way, when everything is done, and the neighbors who live 2 miles down the road have forgotten this have happened, we have to figure out a way to protect my family, the Quicks family, the people surrounding this, from the pollution, from the traffic, from the nuisance, from the noise. I do know in my heart that Dr. Chaudhry and his congregation will do their best to mitigate the impact and the nuisance to their neighbors. I know that. By virtue of its existence and its scale, it's impossible to bring this any closer to a residential home than it was. It's impossible. So I can get upset and lose sleep, which I have for the past 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years. I've gotten sick over this. And then I came to myself and looked at myself one day and said, don't do that, because if you get sick, man, it's not going to change anything. So let's just try to, together as a community, figure this out. I'm not asking them to leave. I'm asking them to make it smaller. I have no problem with people worshiping God. I especially have no problem with the Muslim faith. Many of my friends are from every facet of life in this world. I am completely tolerant and loving of every human being. So this has never been about a mosque or Muslims, religious tolerance or intolerance. It's always been about, I want to sit in the home that I've invested everything in, my dream home, in a town that I raised children in, one of the best towns, I believe, in the country. And I really don't want to hear 107 doors slamming. I really don't want to smell the exhaust from even 50 cars queued up. This is my sanctity. The same way I go and I worship my God in church, they're going to come and worship their God in church, but it just so happens that the swarm of beautiful people who are coming to worship God, just the footprint of that activity is going to destroy my life, my family, the value of my home, the value of my sanctity. And I'm begging someone to please consider, before I have to make this a repetitive complaint and have to call the cops and say it's too loud, have to wash my house and see soot come off on my house knowing that's in my children's lungs. Please build it smaller and be more responsible to the people you're asking to accept you into this community. Thank you for your time.
Sir?
My name is Walter Ruby. I'm from 65 North Fullerton in Montclair, New Jersey.
Can you spell your last name? R-U-B-Y?
That's right.
Can you raise your right hand? Testimony that you will give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do. I will. Well, as I said, my name is Walter Ruby, and I serve as the Muslim-Jewish Program Director for the Foundation for Ethnic Understanding, which is a New York-based not-for-profit working to strengthen Muslim-Jewish relations both here in New York and New Jersey, across the U.S. and around the world, and I've been doing that since 2008. I'm also the co-founder, together with Dr. Chaudhry and other folks, of a body called the New Jersey Muslim-Jewish Solidarity Committee, which is a body of grassroots New Jersey Jews and Muslims dedicated to strengthening ties between our two faith communities. And I should point out here that the Solidarity Committee was founded just over a year ago during a meeting at the Islamic Society of Basking Ridge, and that the ISBR has been one of the most active mosques or synagogues in our network. But our cooperation with ISBR is not a recent thing. In fact, I've been working closely with Dr. Chaudhry and ISBR going back 7 years to the beginning of the Foundation for Ethnic Understanding's work in Muslim-Jewish relations. And I can say without reservation that, based on this long interaction, that ISBR is a mosque deeply committed to building ties of communication and cooperation both with the Jewish community, the Christian community, and people of all faiths. In other words, more than almost any other congregation I know, they truly walk the walk as well as talk the talk. So I can speak mostly about the involvement of the ISBR with the Jewish community. Since 2008, our organization holds an annual event called the Weekend of Twinning, where we link up mosques and synagogues and Muslim and Jewish organizations around the world. And every year the ISBR has been deeply involved in this work. Both thanks to Dr. Chaudhry and many of the other enthusiastic and able congregants. I also know that Dr. Chaudhry has visited myriad synagogues throughout the Metro West area in South Orange, Summit, Morristown, Highland Park, Mount Arlington, and many other places to give lectures telling the true story of what Islam is all about, in order to counter half-truths and outright falsehoods about the Islamic faith that are unfortunately out there on the internet and in popular culture. He serves, as many of you know, as an adjunct professor at Rutgers teaching a course on Islam, and is a co-author of a textbook entitled Islam and Muslims. Dr. Chaudhry also serves on the New Jersey Attorney General's Muslim Outreach Committee, as well as on the Interfaith Advisory Council of the New Jersey Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness. I myself have been invited on many occasions to ISBR, for example, for iftar celebrations breaking the Ramadan fast together with many interfaith leaders of all the faith traditions to discuss traditions involving fasting and the respective faiths.
Whoa. Excuse me, everyone, please. You have the right to object. So if somebody's making an objection, come forward, sir. State your name and address.
My name is Paul Whitty. I live at 44 Tuxford Terrace here in Basking Ridge.
Spell your last name?
W-I-T-T-E. And I'm placing an objection on the record. I'm not sure of the standing of this witness to testify. It seems that he's being or testifying as to a character witness for Dr. Chowdhury and the ISBR, which
Mr.
I'm not
Whitty,
sure.
I just want to confirm, are you represented by anyone? Are you?
I'm standing here as I am an attorney, but I'm here.
Yourself.
I'm representing
You know,
myself.
you're not represented by Mr. Simon, is what I'm
I'm not.
asking. Okay, I just want to make sure of that. So, okay, so.
But I am a member of the community.
Yeah, no.
It's my understanding that the purpose of these hearings was to allow public comment of the community on the application, not offer character witnesses for either Dr. Chowdhury or the ISBR, which I believe this witness is offering testimony as to the character of ISBR and or Dr. Chowdhury.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Whitty.
Well,
Well, just stand by. Mr. Ruby, do you have a proffer as to the purpose of your testimony and why it is relevant? There's been an objection essentially on the basis of relevance, that you're providing a lot of information, none of which has anything to do with the application that's before this board.
I just want to make one thing clear. Even though he objected to standing, don't go with standing. Go with relevancy.
I appreciate that.
Okay, so.
Okay. I think what I have to say, what I want to share, is very, very important. I want to share, because there's obviously been a huge amount of testimony about parking, about land use, about congestion. What I want to say is that this group of people that I've come to know
Wait, hold on a second. Wait. Mr. Ruby, please, wait one second.
Okay.
We can't entertain the objection and make a decision if there's too much noise from the public. So please, let's just deal with this in an orderly fashion.
I want to say that this mosque...
No. Just don't get back into your testimony. Tell me what the purpose of your testimony
is to say that this mosque is deeply committed to interfaith understanding,
okay.
and it is an asset to this community. That's what I want to say.
And then, unfortunately, your comments are subject to the same restrictions as everyone else's.
Sure.
You have this that you want to say. Other people wanted to talk about traffic issues. The rules have to apply to everyone. What you're offering is not relevant to the decisions that this board has to make. So the objection by Mr. Whitty is sustained. So do you have any other testimony or comments directly related?
Site plan issues that are in front of the planning board. Site plan issues, not whether they offer good services, whether they're good citizen, but issues as to the site plan.
No,
May I speak?
Is there an objection to my objection?
Yeah, I mean, I thought we dealt with this another. This is between Mr. Whitty and the witness. Mr. Simon wasn't allowed to chime in on other people's objections.
Is this your witness?
No. But I think you have missed something that Mr. Zubilek put into the record without objection. He said, how do we ever know that this mosque will comply with the restrictions that this board puts upon it?
So essentially, you're
How are you ever going
One second.
How are you ever going to enforce where the small cars park? How are you ever going to enforce the public entrance? No one objected to that. So the integrity...
You didn't... If that was an irrelevant...
I didn't object either.
Right.
So...
Well, but now it's in the record, and therefore the ability of the applicant to comply with the ordinances...
If you want to offer witnesses along that...
I'm not offering anything.
Well, but then you don't have the right to participate in the objection, Mr. Raymar. This witness speaks for... No, I respectfully disagree. And so you've been heard on the record. I sustain the objection. Do you have any other testimony outside concerning
My
the...
only other point is I would
Well, one second. You do? Okay, then with respect...
I have one other...
Okay, hold on, sir.
As to site plan, the chairman's asking.
No, but hold on one second. Is there a motion by the board concerning the preliminary ruling I just made? No. Okay, so that is... Mr. Santoro?
Yeah, I feel that we've heard from the public on things that are not directly related, that are related to how this will affect the community.
Well, are you making a motion?
Yes, I will make a motion that we allow the testimony to continue.
Okay, is there a second on the motion? There's no second, so the motion...
Motion fails.
motion- Mr. Hagan seconds. Any further discussion on the motion?
Okay, so when Fran calls the roll, a yes vote is to overrule the preliminary ruling and allow the witness to continue testifying. A yes vote is to allow the witness to continue testifying, and no vote is that the witness has to stop testifying because
On
he's been-
that topic.
On that line.
on that line because it's on relevancy grounds.
Okay, Fran, roll call.
Okay, a yes vote is,
To reverse my preliminary decision and overrule the objection.
I'm writing this down for myself. Ms.
That's
Albert.
fine.
No.
Mr. Hagan.
Yes.
Ms. Kleinert.
No.
Ms. Pavlini.
No.
Ms. Padici.
No.
Mr. Santoro.
Yes.
Mr. Plaza.
No. Okay, thank you, Mr. Santoro. All right. Thank you, Mr. Woody.
Thank you.
All right, so that objection sustained. Do you have anything else to offer the board?
The only thing I would then just would respectfully appeal to you, the board, that the application by ISBR to build a new mosque building in Liberty Corner, that you will ensure that ISBR's application is treated with the same respect and consideration as would such an application from a church or a synagogue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? I just was going to go to this side because this section hadn't gone yet. Then, sir, please come on up.
My name is Dale Jandal. I live at 371 South Maple Avenue.
Can you give me that again, please, slowly?
Adele, A-D-E-L. Last name Jandal, J-A-N-D-A-L.
Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. I beg the board to allow for this project to go in, to allow for my family, my kids, to share my faith with other Muslim people, to share my heritage, my background with other people. Without this project, I don't have any place to go, and I don't feel if I don't have any place to go, I'm equal to any other people in this community. Please allow this project to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You know, any questions for the witness that just testified before we move on to the next? Okay. And who's next? Who would like to go next? Ma'am?
Sorry, I write really slow.
No, take your time. Take your time. No rush.
Could you turn the microphone toward you? Just tip it towards you a little more? Yeah, that's better, thank you.
My name, Carrie Samuels, 67 Church Street, Liberty Corner.
And how do you spell the carry?
K-E-R-I.
Can you raise your right hand? And do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
A few years ago, the Liberty Corner residents came to the Bernards Township Board of Adjustment and petitioned the members to vote against the building of a new home on Church Street. The applicant was the Board of Trustees of the Liberty Corner Presbyterian Church, and the new minister wanted to knock down the house that the church owned for the minister's residence, otherwise known as the manse. located at 58 Church Street, Block 9302, Lot 12, and build a new house on the site. The applicant was seeking a variance for the new construction and argued that a bigger, more modern residence was necessary for their incoming minister. The neighbors desperately wanted to keep the historical neighborhood the way it is. It had nothing to do with the fact that the applicant was a church. We were not opposed to the minister or the congregation or Presbyterians in general. It was just that the neighbors didn't want new construction to start changing the feeling of the village along this national historical stretch of road. On September 7th, 2011, the board voted in favor of the neighbors, and the village of Liberty Corner was preserved for the time being. Now we have a new applicant who wants to knock down another home and build a house of worship. Will it change the historical nature of this little village within Burnage Township? Of course it will. It seems that Liberty Corner is a very desirable place to be, but everyone who wants to come there wants to change it by knocking down existing homes and building new structures. The very thing that makes it a desirable destination is at risk every time a new major change is proposed. The town plan, as we all know, specifically states that the character of the historical villages of downtown Basking Ridge and Liberty Corner should be protected and preserved. But if successful, this new development will change that forever. I live next door to the school. Twice a day, I cannot get out of my driveway for about 20 minutes. Several times during the school year, there is lots of traffic coming and going for concerts.
Jackson.
No, it's very, very relevant.
Jackson.
Basis.
We're now talking about traffic. And by the way, the objectors talking about the nature of the village, the nature of the community, is as objectionable as what you sustained one witness ago. Who is to say that the nature of the community, in terms of value, that historic is any more different or the same as religious tolerance? Once you allow a witness
I think one has underpinnings in the master plan and the other doesn't. That's the distinction I would draw. But why don't you stick with your...
we have an ordinance.
Stick with the objection at hand instead of... You're kind of going back to the last witness.
We have an ordinance that dictates the nature of this area because it permits this use. So, A, we have a witness objecting to this use on this site, which has already been subject to a ruling of the board. And secondly, we have testimony going to traffic, which has also been subject to decision by this board.
The objection is sustained to the extent you can't talk about traffic on Church Street.
I'm not talking about traffic. Okay. May I continue? Cars are often parked on the street in front of my house. That's not traffic. That is use of a commercial building next to my property.
Ma'am, the impact of cars on Church Street, whether moving or not as it relates
on the street.
As to Church Street.
On the
Internal
street.
circulation within the site, absolutely.
The movement of cars, but not the parking of cars. Can I talk about parking of cars across the end of my driveway when I try to go to work because the school people park there?
No.
Can I talk about lights shining in my windows all night long?
From the site?
From the school. It is what I'm talking about is the quality of life that is going to be sustained by the neighbors who are going to be impacted by this construction. I live next door to...
Are you testifying about what you currently are experiencing now?
Yes.
Can she offer testimony?
Do you represent her?
No, I'm asking her as a fellow citizen.
I don't have a lawyer representing me.
And this isn't a courtroom, respectfully.
This
She's
is my
trying
opinion.
to offer her comment. This has been portrayed to all of us as public comment, and yet we're all being restricted by the rules of court when we're not in a courtroom.
No.
There are,
sir, I don't want to read that very long statement all over again.
I'm reading a portion of the municipal land use law. And a provision of that requires to promote the conservation of historic sites and districts. Okay. She's testifying about the area where she currently lives. I haven't heard her say anything about what the mosque will do yet.
You can't speak for this witness. You can't do it. And you're correct. Well, that's fine, but she's going to have to do it on her own. You'll have your chance to speak. We do have rules as permitted under the municipal land use law.
Yes.
Those laws do impose certain conditions as to materiality and relevance and the rules of evidence. Are they strictly applied like we were in a court of law? No. But these are just very broadly applied rules. We're allowed to do it. It's to create some order. So at this point, I'm going to ask you to step back from the podium.
I understand, but I will state, as Mr. Drill knows, municipal land use law says that the technical rules of evidence shall not be applicable to the hearing.
Okay, sir, please. Unless you want this to... Okay, wait.
I see a woman trying to offer testimony.
Okay, that's your intentions. Sir, please, everyone, let's please just take a breath here. We're going to get through this. Everyone's going to get their chance to speak.
No, they aren't, obviously.
Well, you know that I think I said this 8 meetings ago when we thought we were getting close. Public comment doesn't mean you get to stand up and say absolutely whatever it is you want to say. There are limitations. There are restrictions. We've presented them on 2 occasions with a certain amount of specificity. The objection raised as to the traffic, cars, anything involving Church Street, it's already been ruled upon. So you can't talk about that. You started talking about something else, then somebody else jumped up. There was no objection pending. So please continue. If there's an objection, we'll deal with it.
Okay, my testimony or my comment, my comments are trying to illustrate the impact on the neighborhood, on the adjacent residences that this mosque is going to have. And I can speak for it because I live next door to a similar situation. That's what these comments are based upon. I'm trying to tell the Quick family and the bodies what they will have to look forward to. Is that going to be allowed?
Objection. What she's testifying to is the impact of lights from an
She hasn't testified to anything just yet. She did a little bit. She's telling us what she's about to. We're going to go through the process, Mr. Raymore. Let her make the testimonial statements, and then you'll object if you need to.
You don't want to tell the Abatis and the Quicks what they're going to go through. What you're saying is you want to tell the board what the Abatis and Quicks will go through. Is that your point?
Well, or both.
Because if your point is you want to tell them what they're going through, that's not...
Okay, I want to let you know what they're going to go through then.
Based on your experience living next to a non-residential use.
Correct.
Okay, please proceed.
Thank you. Okay, lights shine in my windows all night long.
Objection. Lights from an elementary school, we don't know the lumens, we don't know the distance, we don't even know where the elementary school is yet on the record. It has nothing, it is irrelevant and not probative for any purpose on this application with these lights on this site.
Overruled. It might go to weight, but it's sufficiently relevant. Please continue, ma'am.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
As cars drive around the back of the school, they shine their headlights in the back of my house. When it snows, the parking lots get plowed at midnight, and often the leaves get blown or the lawns get cut at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. One morning last spring, the fire alarm went off at 5:30 and rang for about a half an hour. The fire trucks came, and finally, after about 45 minutes, they were able to turn the alarm off. It was then 6:15 a.m. And I'm not allowed to talk about a parked car illegally. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Oh. Okay. In saying all of this, I am not complaining. The school was there when I bought my house over 20 years ago. I signed up for the noise, the lights, and the traffic. I signed up for the congestion and the school buses leaving the parking lots, and the fire drills and the bells that signal the beginning and the end of school twice a day, every day. However, the neighbors near the proposed mosque did not sign up to live next door to a commercial building. They have been members of a quiet residential neighborhood for decades and don't look forward to having their routines and lives disrupted, and I don't blame them for being upset. I belong to a religion that is not well known in this part of the country. Several years ago, my church wanted to build a temple in Westchester County in a residential neighborhood. It was debated and fought for and against for a very long time and was finally defeated. As disappointed as the applicants were at the time, they found a more appropriate spot for the temple, and everyone was happy in the end. At some point, regardless of the ordinances and the laws, don't you have to take into consideration the desires and rights of the residents that have made Liberty Corner their home for these many years? I think I speak for all these residents when I say that we wouldn't want any new structure with 107 parking places, not an office building, not a strip mall, not a retail store, not a theater. We don't want more traffic, more construction, or more congestion. So again, a town board has a decision to make. Do you allow the construction to take place at the expense of the neighbors and the historical nature of one of the last remaining villages in the township? Do you allow changes to be made that will disrupt and alter the lives of the residents? These residents, myself included, chose Liberty Corner as our home because it is quaint, it is old, and it is historical, and we would like to keep it that way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hold on 1 sec. Are there any questions for Ms. Samuels? Okay, thank you, ma'am. Who would like to go next? Mr. Smith?
Cody Smith, 36 Royal Oak Drive.
Can you just sign in on the yellow sheet?
I have done that.
Okay. Can you raise your right hand? You swear the testimony that you're going to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I assume from seeing that you have a PowerPoint that you're going to be giving?
Correct.
And do you have any paper copies of it?
Yes. So what I'd like to try to do, if I could, is have this submitted as part of the record.
Okay, so why don't you give a copy to Mr. Raymar? Mr. Simon, you want a copy?
I would love it. Thank you.
And a copy for me, and then we'll have a copy for Fran, just to see if there are any objections to it going in at this point into evidence, or if Mr. Raymar wants to wait and hear the PowerPoint first.
So it faces your mouth. Yeah, that's fine.
Nothing yet.
I
Want to
think-
wait?
Yes, and it may be that parts are objectionable and parts are not.
Okay, that's why I asked you. So, for now, we're going to mark this as A50, as P2 for identification only. And just for the record, this is a paper copy of a PowerPoint entitled Berners Township Planning Board ISBR application, PB 12-001, public comment, Cody Smith, dated April 21st, 2015.
Correct. And so what you have is actually the slide pages with notes in them. So I have not only given you, the slides is all I will show and I'll work off of today, but what is actually in here are note pages where I have some of my comments.
Okay, so I can say that if you read every comment, then unless any particular objection, Mr. Raymar objects, we'll deal with it. And I guess we'll also see, if you don't read some of the comments, we'll see if he objects to it, but you might as well, you present it how you want to present it.
Okay, well, my intention was to not read every single comment necessarily, but if that's what I need to do, I'm prepared to do that.
I haven't even looked at it. I don't even know how many words are on a page.
So put it this way, this is an exhibit, so he was under no obligation to submit it ahead of time.
I'm not objecting.
Right,
Well, I think what I would like to do is, I'll go through it the way Mr. Smith goes through it. I'll quickly try to scan what else is on the page.
And you'll see if you have any objections.
And I'll save my objections maybe to the end.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine. Here, how to work this. Okay, so this is the points that I have that I wanted to go through tonight. If there are any comments or any objections or any questions as I go through this, by all means, you can stop me. I'll try to stop at the end of each one. And if there's any questions, then feel free to ask or wait till the end, whatever you prefer. So here, what I wanted to talk about was the detention basin, some fire safety ordinance issues, parking, particularly the parking sizes, a couple of other things, and then quick discussion of variances and exception, and then a couple closing comments. So to start with the detention basin, what I want to go through here is the background. At present, the applicant has proposed a detention basin in the easterly 50-foot buffer that measures approximately 320 feet in length. My guess, 23 feet in width and about 5 feet in the deepest part of the basin itself. And I think there's been a lot of testimony. There's a detention basin. It severely limits the planting of vegetation, particularly trees and shrubs, that maybe all that will be there is grass. The issue here is the location and the size of the detention basin significantly compromises the stated purpose of the buffer, and the proposed solutions are inadequate in my view. So my conclusion is that a detention basin of this magnitude in the buffer should not be permitted, and the proposed solution to add a 265-foot solid 6-foot-high solid fence on the easterly property line is inconsistent with and may violate the township's fencing ordinance. So to start, this is just a definition of the buffer taken, copied and pasted straight out of the ordinance. What it talks about here is natural woodlands, earth mounds, and plantings of screening material. Just as an aside, one of the things I wanted to mention here is I think Mr. Plaza, in your questioning of Mr. Steck in the June 12, 2014 minute, there's about 27 minutes in there, or 28 minutes of a lot of questioning about the interaction between the buffer, screening, and at that point there wasn't a fence proposed. So there wasn't a discussion about fencing. It was just what is a buffer, what is a screen, how do they work. I would just suggest that for that, I have it marked here in the exhibit, but starting about 6 minutes into that meeting till 35 minutes in, there's a good discussion about really, a refresher on the buffer and the screen. As an aside in this presentation, you won't see it here, it is in the notes, but you'll see it in other slides where I mentioned the meeting date and the time that it was discussed. And on the file, if we need to talk about it or we need to hear it, I have a lot of audio clips of those sections of the meeting which I reference here. One of these would be that 27 or 28 minutes of that meeting. Obviously, you can go to the official audio recording for the meeting itself and pull it up, but I've also tried to put those audio clips and the references in here. And if there's any questions about those, or you have a question about what I've said or what was actually said at the meeting, I think according to Mr. Schley, we'd have the ability to actually play the clip if we need to do that. So anyhow, I think with the buffer itself, I think the intention of the buffer is, as it says here, basically natural woodlands, earth mounds, planted material. It's not a fence or something of that sort. A recap of sort of what I just mentioned about Mr. Steck's testimony, which I think is relevant, that the buffer operates in two ways. It has a width feature and a feature usually in this case in a suburban or suburban or a rural setting of landscaping to basically separate the property uses. And then that's usually done with vegetation and supplemented as needed. It's meant to soften the impact of the non-residential land use that's being proposed. And I think the key thing here, one of the key things in my mind, is that the buffering is the responsibility of the more offensive use, or in this case, ISBR's application, particularly on the easterly property line. It's not the QUIC's responsibility to fulfill the buffering obligation. but it's ISBR's responsibility to fulfill the buffering obligation. On the next slide, again, this is just a lift from the township ordinance itself. And in particular, there's been a lot of discussion around B1 and the drainage improvement, and whether or not the detention basin and perhaps the swale constitute drainage improvements that were permitted within the buffer. And I believe that there was a straw poll done, and the board had determined that, yes, a detention basin would be considered a drainage improvement that would be allowed in the buffer. And then the question becomes exactly how large or how much of can that detention basin be. A couple of points here that I have on the next slide. Does the permitting of the drainage improvement within the buffer mean there's no constraints? I think there's been a lot of discussion that the ordinance is not clear as to what the size of the permissible detention basin could be. I think Mr. Steck testified that it's not a limitless exception. In particular, I think a lot of it was around the driveway, and I have some quotes in here about what he said about the driveway, because at that time it was proposed that the driveway would also be located within the buffer. And as we all know, the driveway has been relocated outside the buffer, but I think the same concept applies, that if somebody at the extreme wanted to fill the entire easterly buffer as a detention basin, plant no trees, and then run a 6-foot high solid fence down the Quicks property line, would that actually be in keeping with the ordinance? And I would suggest that that would not be in keeping with the ordinance, that you can't do that. There has to be some kind of balance between allowing the detention basin and still trying to maintain as much as you can the integrity of the buffer. And I'll talk a little bit about how one might try to, at least when I was thinking about it, how one might try to think through that. A couple of other points. I think some of this was from Mr. Steck's testimony, but in terms of what are the permitted uses within the detention basin, we have the underground utility, which would basically be minimal disturbance, sidewalk or a bike path 4 to 6 feet wide, crossing of an access road, maybe 24 feet by 50 feet or 1,200 square feet that would use up space in the buffer where one couldn't plant trees. And then we have the applicant's proposed drainage improvement, which, according to my rough calculation, is about 7,500 square feet. So there was some discussion about Millington Baptist Church and that they have a detention basin, and I think that was 25 feet by 100 feet. I did go over there and take a look at it. It didn't look like it was 25 feet, but even so, that would be about a 2,500-foot detention basin that was permitted in Millington Baptist Church in the back corner. From my observation a couple months ago, it appeared like there was adequate screening. This detention basin is 3 times the size of what was permissible or allowed at Millington Baptist Church. And I think there was some testimony by Mr. Steck that it doesn't really matter where the residence itself is located on the adjacent property, but if one was to look at that qualitatively, where the houses were located on the lots in Millington Baptist Church is far away from the property line of Millington Baptist Church, whereas the Quick property is very close to the property line. So how might one think about what to do here? I coined this the Quick test in honor of the Quicks.
Mr. Smith, I hate to interrupt, but could you just pick the whole thing up?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Did you ask their permission before you coined it that, Mr. Smith?
I did not. I do not have permission.
Someone else has a copyright on that.
Yeah. So what I thought maybe a reasonable way to think about this is, if the Quicks were sitting on their patio, basically, what is the level of noise, light, and visual reduction that could be achieved without the detention basin or a fence? So sort of that would be the standard of, if we could do this right, as I'll call it, the buffer would be vegetation, planted material. We would achieve what we could with the vegetation and planted material, and that would sort of be the standard. And then if somebody wanted to put a detention basin in that buffer, how far off of that do you go in terms of allowing more light, in terms of allowing more noise, before one would say that the detention basin is actually too large. And my premise here is that difference should be negligible, maybe a bit small, but basically you would look at that and say, what could I achieve without the fence, and what could I achieve without the detention basin? And then to the extent that you've got to add a fence and a fence or other screening type of materials that isn't vegetation, I think the fence is probably the only thing you could do, then perhaps that's a sign that the detention basin is just too large. Discussion of screening, again, this is sort of right out of the ordinance. As a refresher, I wanted to burn some paper. And then here on the buffering, I think the key here in the buffering section is it says the opportunities presented by existing site features. So I was thinking about this to say, well, if for whatever reason that 50-foot buffer is all rock, so you can't plant anything in it, then maybe that's an existing site feature which you have to overcome and compensate for, and maybe that would allow to put some kind of fencing in or something else because the existing site feature is such that you can't plant anything in it. But in this case, where the existing site feature appears to be completely plantable and the detention basin is the thing that's getting in the way, then again, it sort of comes back to saying that maybe the detention basin is a bit too large. So again, I think I've probably covered this, but I think the screening ordinance, the focus of the screening ordinance when I read it is primarily focused on vegetation and distance, meaning that, again, if we can achieve it with vegetation and we have 50 feet to plant, then that would be the primary way that I would suggest that one should achieve the screening, meet the screening ordinance. And then the fence, if necessary, should be consistent with the surrounding area. I think if you drive around the neighborhood, the only place that you see a fence like this in the immediate vicinity is perhaps behind the post office or near the Exxon gas station on the corner, where it's separating those commercial uses from Liberty Corner Farm. But if you drive up Church Street, drive out towards Far Hills, out towards the hills on Somerville Road, or down Minebrook, there aren't any 6-foot high solid fences that go for 265 feet. And then, as I said here, if there is a need for it, then the applicant, not the quick, should suffer from the visual impact of that. And I think what I have here in the fourth bullet is the testimony from Mr. Kahn has been somewhat inconsistent, particularly in this area. Where he basically had stated, when I think I asked him the question first time when they proposed a fence at the September 30th, 2014 meeting. I'm sorry, it's in another slide, I'm mixed up here. Here, I think when we talked to Mr. Kahn about his testimony, he said that in that most recent plan, the detention basin was moved closer to the parking lot in order to provide more ability to do screening. And then on top of that, the applicant proposes a 6-foot high solid fence. So how is it consistent that the detention basin is moved closer to the parking lot to provide for more screening, and then a 6-foot high fence is added on the property line? And it just brings up the question of who exactly is that screening for? Is it for the quicks or is it for the applicant? And one other thing here on the bottom that I thought was interesting is that, again, when Mr. Zimmerman testified on April 8, 2014, and he talked about the screening, he said that when he went through the ordinances, he said that the screening requirement had been met. So this was the plan prior to the driveway being relocated that had the smaller detention basin in it, because since the driveway was over in the buffer, and the front detention basin could be a bit larger. But after after the driveway was moved out of the buffer and the detention basin was screened, at that point in time, the 6-foot high solid fence was added. So I would suggest that that's a good data point to say, apparently, the applicant could have met the screening requirement without a fence when the detention basin was smaller under the previous plan prior to September 2014, And then the fence was added, which is an indication that the detention basin, in my mind, has grown to a size that should not be permissible. Moving now to the fencing ordinance, again, a part of this whole puzzle. I think the fencing ordinance there, and I've taken the opportunity to add the emphasis that if a fence is allowed, it shall have minimal visual impact on surrounding properties due to the use of unobtrusive fence materials such as dark-colored open mesh and appropriate landscaping. So here, I don't believe that this fence standing on its own, if this was a existing residence and the resident wanted to add a fence down the property line that's 6 foot high and solid, my reading of this ordinance would say it doesn't meet the requirements of this ordinance. And then what I put here, sometimes in these hearings, we've looked to what Webster said. So I've included here the definition of unobtrusive fence material, and whether or not we would think that a 6 foot high fence would be not obtrusive, not blatant, arresting, or aggressive, and it particularly wouldn't be inconspicuous. This is a picture I took last month, I think it was, when I was in Lake Placid, and this is a 6 foot high fence. So walking around the lake, I came across this, and I thought about these hearings, and I thought I'd share with you that how great that picture looks. That's what the Quicks can look at from their back patio. Here I think there was a discussion, it was in a couple slides ago of the ordinance that basically talks about if you're going to put in a fence, that the posts have to be symmetrical and the finished side has to face in a certain direction. I think Mr. Schley at the meeting on September 30th suggested, again based on a reading of the ordinance, that you would need variances, or the applicant would need variances if the posts were not symmetrical due to trees that got in the way of planting the posts. And the choice that the Quicks might be given with respect to which way they'd like the finished side of the fence. So it just is a little bit perplexing to me how somebody would need variances for those types of things with respect to erecting a fence, yet the whole fence itself, that it seems to be completely obtrusive, would not require any kind of variance. So in conclusion, on this section, in my view, the proposed fence is symptomatic. The fencing is really symptomatic of a larger problem. So we can focus on the fence and the 6 foot high fence and whether the fence is a permissible construction or whether the fencing ordinance allows the fence. But really what it comes back to is that the detention basin itself is just too large, and it basically impedes the buffer. Prime example here I have is the western buffer. So Mr. Abadi may not like it, but it seems like we have no problem with the western buffer. We have wetlands there which sort of impede what one can do with screening in that buffer, yet we're not calling for a fence in that buffer. There's been no discussion about a screening issue with respect to the western side of the property. And so, again, I think it points to that the detention basin is just too large. And so I think that the basin should be reduced if it's not relocated. And then if for some reason the fencing was allowed, I think at one of the prior meetings I suggested that the fence ought to be run along the property lot, along the parking lot on the western side of the easterly buffer, so that if there is a fence there and it's going to be obtrusive to someone, again, it's the applicant's responsibility to provide the buffer and to provide the screening, and they're the ones that ought to enjoy the obtrusive fence, not the Quicks. So with that, that's all I have on the detention basin and the buffer screening. If I can stop there, I can keep going.
Why don't you continue?
Okay.
If the board has questions, they'll pick up at the end.
The next thing I'd like to talk about is this fire safety ordinance in the NFPA. Here, a lot of discussion about this. At present, the applicants propose to use the parking lot lanes for the fire apparatus circulation, which I think is allowed under the township ordinance. In my view, the parking the parking stall lengths and the drive aisles which do not meet the NFPA standards. And without redesigning the parking scheme, then the exceptions are necessary for both the width of the parking lot aisle and the size of the parking spaces. So with that, this is the township ordinance. I think E1, means of access for fire department apparatus shall consist of 5 fire lanes, private streets, parking lines, and a combination thereof. So I think this is the ordinance that clearly allows the parking lot lanes to be used as fire access, which is what the applicant is proposing. One side note on this is I think in terms of the township ordinance, it specifically mentions the National Fire Codes Protection Association standards, and I think it should really be, what was really meant there is the National Fire Protection standards. Or, I'm sorry, National Fire Protection Association standards, NFPA standards. So during these hearings, both Mr. Raymar and Mr. Khan have both cited the NFPA standards on numerous occasions. In particular, Mr. Raymar has cited NFPA 1141. I won't read you the title, regarding the applicant's compliance with the setback requirements. And I have some times there, and there's a few more times when the NFPA standards were mentioned during these hearings in my notes, which I won't cover here. So I think when it deals with setback from the roadway, 1141 and the compliance therewith, particularly Chapter 6, has been cited and mentioned. Well, if you go back one chapter to Chapter 5, means of access, it talks about vehicles traveling to and from structures. The definition of means of access specifically includes parking lots, and Section 5.4 provides minimum lengths for parking lot stalls and drive aisles. And in particular, the NFPA standards call for 18.5-foot length parking stalls rather than the 18 feet that is currently being proposed. One thing here I, quite frankly, don't know what to do with is the compact spaces, because those are 16 feet. So I don't know how that would meet with the NFPA standards, whether that would they all have to be 18.5 feet, or whether one could say there's something different. But having said that, I'm going to address the compact spaces in a few minutes. And the other thing that the NFPA standards call for is parking aisles that should be 26 feet in width. So I think I've covered this already in my last comment, but the parking spaces, in my view, the lengths are not long enough. The parking lot aisles are not wide enough. 2 feet short on the width of the parking lane aisles, and at least a half a foot short on the parking space lengths, not considering the compact. So I think we went through it in the prior meetings, where I still believe that the interpretation of the ordinance should be that the NFPA standards govern when the township standards are not more specific. And here I think the NFPA standards call for different size parking spaces and parking aisles. Continuing on for a moment, the public entrance. A lot of discussion around the public entrance. One thing I'd like to go back to is this slide, I think, is what sort of piqued my interest. So this was a comment that Janet Lake made at the December 2nd, 2015 meeting. And I think it's important, so I will read it. Now, I've spoken of the back entrance maybe being the best entrance to meet the township ordinance for the setbacks and the 25-foot fire lane. They told me, which I did not understand at the time, that the back of the building on the mosque is actually the prayer room, so to bring people through that might not be appropriate at all times. They suggested the side entrance. So this, quite frankly, when that meeting occurred and Ms. Lake said that, I didn't really clue in on it. When I went back and I got a recording from Fran and I read the recording, that's what piqued my interest. And this is why I wanted to talk to Mr. Khan again and bring him back. So when my request to talk to him again was turned down, there was a lot of discussion about Chief Abrahamian's memo and Janet Lake's memo, and I had no intention at all to talk about that with Mr. Khan. This is what I wanted to understand from Mr. Khan, because at that meeting, there was a few number of people that were there, and Mr. Khan was one of the people at that meeting. So I wanted to understand why it was not appropriate to enter into the prayer room, because that was why I was trying to figure out whether or not the public entrance was appropriately designated. It had nothing to do with the memos from the fire chief or the fire official or anything like that. My understanding was on the fire service plan that the public entrance should be designated on the fire service plan. Mr. Hagan had a lot of questions of Ms. Lake as to why do we need to go back again? Why is this taking so long? And the comment that Ms. Lake said was, well, we've never had a fire service plan that designates the public entrance. That was one of the things that she said. And so I was assuming when we had that discussion and I was told to hold my questions on the fire safety issues, that the reason I should hold my questions is because Mr. Khan would come back and the public entrance was in the domain of the fire service plan. And that was my request to bring him back, specifically to ask why it was that the back entrance to the mosque may not be appropriate at all times. So having said that, I think I've pieced it together. So what I have here, at present, the applicants propose to use the westward-facing prayer hall door as their public entrance. The township ordinance requires a setback, which we've talked about, of 20 feet. The proposed public entrance, currently the only entrance that can meet the requirements. So if you go around this facility without a redesign, there isn't another alternative. It's only the prayer hall that can be used. So my issue that the proposed public entrance is inconsistent with the applicant's original intention, as well as Islamic and religious practices, and significantly impedes the internal circulation within the building, calling into question whether the public entrance has been correctly identified. So the prior testimony and existing evidence point to the wudu room as being the public entrance. The wudu room entrance does not meet the township setback requirements. I think Mr. Khan testified that this entrance is only 8 to 10 feet from the fire lane or the driveway, not the required 20 feet. So how do I get there? Again, this is just a repeat of the public entrance, the ordinance itself, with 5E, which has been a lot of discussion about the 25 feet and the 20 feet. Here I want to put this in, but I don't want to make it the point of the public the point of the discussion is that I'm still not sure what the public entrance means, whether it's that used by the public or whether it's that would be used by fire personnel in an emergency. I think Mr. Santoro had some questions about that. I think if it's fire personnel in an emergency, then the logical entrance is the front entrance, not the back, at least in my mind. But what we're going to do is go with what we have in the back. So in Mr. Khan's testimony, when he was defining the public entrance, he said it's a singular entrance that is used by the public, and common sense tells you that two, because any access that is used by most of the people should be the main focus of your studies and the focus of your fire prevention procedures. So I don't know what most of the people means. Well, to make up a rule and say it's 50%. So moving on, in questioning that began in response to a question asked by Mr. Banish. So Mr. Banish at the December 2nd meeting, there about 49 minutes in, had asked about the internal circulation of the facility and how that works. We had the wudu. There was a discussion about wudu and performance of wudu, and Mr. Khan estimated that 10% of the people or the worshipers would perform wudu. I have here that was never substantiated, but I'm not sure that it's that relevant. I think what is relevant is that when Mr. Khan was discussing that, and he was looking at ways that somebody who had to perform wudu went into the facility, he acknowledged that there were two ways that somebody performing wudu could enter the facility, that they either come through the newly designated public entrance, that is the prayer hall, or they could come through the southwest door that leads directly into the wudu room. What I have here is a screenshot of his drawing. Apologize, my picture frame is probably a bit too small, but essentially in the yellow lines there's a circle around the voodoo room door. I'm sorry. Yeah, there's a circle around the voodoo room door and then going in that way. And then on the large blue circle towards the bottom of the picture frame is the circle around the prayer hall entrance. And then the red arrows show someone entering in through the prayer hall and then around and into the lobby area. That's what that kind of whatever zigzag line is. So when there was the discussion about those two ways to enter, and Mr. Khan coming to the realization that you could enter directly into the voodoo room, he coined directly those parishioners that need to perform voodoo, that entering directly into the voodoo room would be better in his terms. So rather than come through the prayer hall and walk all the way around to the voodoo room entrance, that a parishioner would actually walk straight through the voodoo room doors, the ones that are closest to the road, the 8 to 10 feet, and enter the facility that way. But he said that was only perhaps 10% of the worshipers who would visit the mosque. So what I've done here is I've taken Exhibit A01 and I've kind of drawn it out. That the blue line is what I believe Mr. Khan's testimony was as to how somebody who needing to perform voodoo could enter the facility and which way they would get in. And then the red line is the other description of someone who needed to perform voodoo, that they would enter right into the voodoo lobby. So after the applicant presented the revised plans, I think Mr. Plaza, you asked a question of Mr. Raymar and welcomed Mr. Khan to chime in. And if I've copied this right, you asked, do these changes, meaning the redesignation of the public entrance through the prayer hall, do these changes reflect what your expectation was as to the actual use of entrances regardless of designation? In other words, upon reflection, was it decided that based on the location of the parking lot and the inability to park out front, that people were going to be using this, again, the prayer hall entrance, regardless of designation? And the answer that you received was yes. What this is an extract from Daniel Lincoln's testimony on November 28, 2012, in particular on page 65. And what it discusses, if you're coming to a religious service, actually you would park in the back, then you would walk into this room here on the left, which is an area that contains shelving for shoes. People take their shoes off in this area, and then they walk into two washing areas, which are men's and women's, which are on either side of the hallway. They can walk to the lobby area. And then he goes on, washing facilities for their feet and hands and your face, because before making prayer, you have to clean yourselves and so forth. The point here was that the original intention was always to enter through the voodoo room lobby. It was not to enter through the prayer hall. And the other thing that I was wondering at one point in time when I didn't understand this was, why was that door that we had questioned if somebody was to come out that front door and perhaps get hit by fire apparatus, and then in the revised design that door was removed? And so I scratched my head not having put this together, and I said, why? What was that door there for in the first place? Is it fire safety, where it needed to be there for fire evacuation, or was it for something else? And the fact that it was removed in the revised plan seemed to indicate that it wasn't needed for fire safety. And I think why this door was here was because the original intention, which is again in the November 2012 transcripts, is that I think when this was first proposed, there was going to be drop-offs in the U-shaped driveway. And so if you were swinging through the U-shaped driveway and dropping somebody off here to worship, then they would come into this door that goes directly into the voodoo lobby if they needed to. And then I think this is the real issue. So the fact is that the Voodoo lobby is that any worshiper is going to take their shoes off. So what we have in the Voodoo lobby is a series of shoe racks. So everyone, before they pray, if they need to wash or not wash, fine, but they're going to leave their shoes in the Voodoo lobby. And so rather than 10% of the people coming here to worship are going to come through the Voodoo room lobby and then wash and then go into the prayer hall, I think 100% of the people who are coming here to worship are going to be in the Voodoo lobby, not the 10%. And what was never talked about in the testimony was shoes in the prayer hall. And that, I think, is what is one of the gaping holes here that hasn't been discussed, is how do shoes play into this? What I have here, and I have in my stack there, is I went to the Bernards Township Library, and there's a couple books, and if you look on the internet, I have some sites on the internet on the next slide, but basically there's ample evidence out there that you do not wear shoes in the prayer hall. So the question here is, how do we use the prayer hall entrance when you don't wear shoes in the prayer hall? Are people expected to take their shoes off outside and then walk through the prayer hall and walk back around the long way in my one slide with the blue arrows and put their shoes in the shoe rack that way? And then when they're done praying, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to go to the Voodoo lobby. They're going to get their shoes. They're going to come walk back around through the prayer hall and go out through the prayer hall door? Or are people natural and they're going to grab their shoes and they're going to go right out through the Voodoo lobby if they don't come in that way in the first place? I can pull it up. If there's any question on this, let me grab it. What I have here, if you want it, is I have copies of the books that I mentioned. There's books in both the Bernards Township Library. There's books in the Bernardsville Library that I have copies of. There's all kinds of websites that talk about shoes and how there's a prohibition of wearing shoes in the prayer hall. There's also a website that Dr. Chaudhry is familiar with. It's Islam and Muslim Books. There's a pamphlet on that website written by Dr. Chaudhry and Robert Dixon Crane that talks about the prohibition from wearing shoes in the prayer hall. If you'd like it, I can give you the website.
Why don't you just, for the record, this is the website that has the pamphlet that was co-written by Dr. Chaudhry? Okay, so give one to the applicant's attorney and the objector's attorney. Leave it with the package for the end. Keep on going.
Do you want two?
Will you have another?
Yeah.
Thank you. And just for the record, we're going to identify this document at this point for ID only as P3.
So, can I read to you from that pamphlet?
You have an objection?
One of the things I mentioned there, Part 1, Description of Islamic Prayer, page 7 and 8. It's entitled The Place of Prayer and Removal of Shoes. It says people must take off their shoes before entering the prayer hall of a mosque. The requirement can be traced back to the prophet Moses. The Quran states that when we came to the fire, a voice was uttered. O Moses, I am your Lord, therefore take off your shoes. You are in the sacred valley of Tuah. So I think that this isn't just a will comply. I think this is a fundamental problem with the design of the mosque, that you can't just put a sign on the door that says, go enter through the prayer hall, like we suggested on some other things. I think this is a fundamental issue with the religion itself and the religious belief, that there hasn't been any discussion about what we're going to do with shoes. The design of the mosque itself, obviously, with the shoe racks and the wudu room, and the intention was always there that that was going to be the public entrance. So my suggestion here is that there's probably more work that needs to be done.
Come on up, sir. Mr. Smith, you have the mic.
Can we use the other one?
Very clever move.
Yeah. Overruled. Good.
That was good.
Yes, sir. First, you have to state your name and address.
Yeah, my name is Mohd Moharib, M-O-H-D. That's short of Muhammad. Last name is Moharib.
Spell it out. First name.
First name is M-O-H-D, like David. Last name is M-O-H-A-R-E-B. And my objection is...
Address?
Yeah, 96 Baldwin Court, Basking Ridge, New Jersey. The objection is about the point that was mentioned about it's prohibited to pray with the shoes.
Okay. You can't challenge the substance of his testimony on an objection. If you have an objection that it's somehow not relevant to the application or some other basis, that you can object to. Otherwise, if you take exception with the accuracy of what this witness is saying, you'll have your opportunity to come up and you can dispute that. Yeah, but it's not an objection. So far, the testimony that's been offered is relevant and material to this application. So the objection that you're making, that I think you're making, is overruled. I think what you're really doing is taking exception with the accuracy of what this witness is saying. So come up later when it's your turn and you can tell us how we got it wrong.
I was trying to say that, you tell me if this is not allowed. I was trying to say that something
Sir,
it's coming
okay,
from over here.
you can't gesticulate with the microphone. You have to keep it here.
No,
Sorry
hold
about
it
that.
close to your
Hold
mouth.
it close to your mouth, that's all.
Yeah.
Don't move it around. Just hold it
Okay.
close to your mouth. Closer.
Difficult.
That's it.
What I was trying to say that making a point that it's allowed or not allowed, from a church to church, from mosque to mosque, it's different. For me, I pray with my shoes.
Okay, that's contrary testimony.
Yeah.
You can make that testimony, but not during this witness's presentation. It's not a valid objection. So I'm going to overrule the objection. I'm going to ask you to take your seat, and then when you have the opportunity, you can come up and give us your counter testimony. Okay?
Thanks.
Okay. Is there a motion? Gentlemen, please proceed, Mr. Smith.
So maybe on that note, because yes, when I was looking at it, there is conflicting some conflicting guidance. I don't know if that's the right word to call it out there about whether you can pray with shoes on or not. I think most of the guidance says that you do not pray with shoes on, and if you do, you have to clean the shoes and make sure that the mosque and the prayer hall stays pure. There's a whole bunch of stuff on it. Maybe with that, is it possible to submit as evidence the copies of the books that I have? I can pull them out of my binder there that I checked out of the library.
If you make copies, you're not going to give us the books from the library.
Correct. I don't have 5 copies of the books. Yeah.
Mr. Ramar, do you have an objection to those books coming in? You want to see them first?
Yeah, I need to see them.
Why don't you show them to Mr. Ramar first?
You want to reserve that objection to the end of your presentation so you don't break your momentum, or do you want to deal with it now?
Either way.
Were you planning on reading excerpts from them now?
No, I was not. I was going to move on, but given that maybe I'll get challenged on this later on, I wanted to put more evidence on the record that shoes in a prayer hall are generally not permissible.
So why don't we take a moment and deal with it then, if that's your preference?
I thought there's a whole series of them.
There are. Just hold on. He says he has copies of 5 books. It looks like he's getting the cover page of the book, the inside cover that has the Library of Congress number and identifying features, and then the text of the page that he wants to put in.
So it's an excerpt from the books.
Right.
It's not the entire book, Mr. Smith?
Correct. Correct.
These are, I can tell you.
Yeah, so after you get them handed out, then I'm going to mark them for ID and ask you a couple of questions, such as where they came from. But let's keep on handing them out. You have one more set, right?
It's the 4 books I gave you.
Yeah.
I have about 7 websites from various Islamic websites, if you'd like those too.
Why don't we start with the 4 books? So the first book, the title is The Everything Understanding Islam book, 2nd edition, A Complete Guide to Muslim Beliefs, Practices, and Culture, and the author is Christine Huda Dodge. I'm going to mark this for ID only as P4.
Which one is that? P4?
That's this one.
P4, Huda Dodge.
Okay? The next one, I'm just reading the title. The Complete Idiot's Guide to Understanding Islam. And that's going to be P5 for ID only.
And just those 2 I checked out. I have them right here. I checked them out of the Bernards Township Library.
Okay, so let's write that down. Okay, the next one says A Muslim Primer, Beginner's Guide to Islam, 2nd edition, written by Ira G. Zepp, Jr. I'm going to mark that P6 for ID only. And the last one, A Brief Guide to Islam, History, Faith, and Politics, The Complete Introduction by Paul Grieve. That's going to be P7 for identification. And then I'm going to ask you, where did you get P6 and P7?
Those are, I did not check them out, but those are both in the Bernardsville Library.
Okay, and the purpose of introducing them into evidence is, as I understand it, is on the issue of shoes on or off in the prayer hall?
Correct. There's a few things. As one, I think the original intention was never to use the prayer hall as the public entrance. These books don't do that. The second thing is that I think the majority of people will use the prayer hall entrance because they will leave their shoes in the the majority of people use the wudu room entrance because they will leave their shoes in the shoe racks in the wudu room lobby.
No, I understand the point you're making.
And the point is that what these are trying to demonstrate is that it's not a simple fix where we redirect people to use the prayer hall. I think there's an issue with people wearing their shoes in the prayer hall. So they would have to take their shoes off and carry them through the prayer hall back to the shoe racks.
Right, but what I'm asking is the purpose of putting these into evidence is to show what the Muslim practice is with respect to shoes on or off in the prayer hall?
Correct.
That's my question?
Yes, correct.
Is there any objection to having these go into evidence?
Yes. Anders' objection to this line of testimony. I thought I heard the witness say that he was referring to something that Dr. Chaudhry had written. And when I understood that that was what the witness was referring to, well, then that's something that Dr. Chaudhry had written, and I did not object because that would have a different nature, because what he's doing is basically quoting Dr. Chaudhry. Now it turns out
Mr.
that...
Lamar, could you just put your mic up?
Now it turns out that he's not presenting something written by Dr. Chaudhry. He's presenting treatises that he finds in the library. So there's two objections. One is the witness is not an expert in religious practice. He may have had questions for Mr. Khan about where should the shoes be if the public entrance moved from the front to the back. He may have had questions for Mr. Lincoln that might have been appropriate. He might have been able, as I think I asked Mr. Steck, whether you recognize this treatise or not as a learned treatise. He's not asking anybody whether this is an appropriate treatise for anything. So I object both to the line of testimony, because he's not an expert, and I object to the introduction of P4, 5, 6, and 7, because no one is establishing that these are recognized treatises. We don't know what they are. We don't know anything about the authors.
One sec. Just getting back to what you were discussing about Mr. Khan and Mr. Lincoln.
Right.
Were either Mr. Khan or Mr. Lincoln offered by the applicant as experts on religious practice of Muslims? So none of their testimony should be construed as being expert relative to the practices and customs in the Muslim faith? I just want to be clear on that.
No, I agree.
Mr. Khan, throughout his testimony, did start offering certain personal observations and opinions, and I just want to clarify that those opinions were never intended by the applicant to be expert opinions.
Not on religious practice, but it would have been appropriate on cross-examination for someone to say, well, is what you designed consistent with religious practice? I don't remember whether that was done or not. I wasn't even here.
But if neither of them was offered as an expert on religious practice and custom, why would that question be properly directed to them?
Well, as an engineer, you can ask, did you design this in conjunction with religious practice or not? It wasn't asked. My point is, we don't have a witness here who can say whether these are treatises recognized to be learned or not. We don't know anything about the authors. We've been in court. We know when you use a treatise, you can't just present a book and say, I'm referring to the book. There has to be some basis established, usually through a witness who says, I recognize that book. In fact, when the question was raised with the fire chief, do you recognize this book as an authority? And the fire chief on one book said, no, I don't recognize this code. That Mr. Plaza ruled, well, that's the end of the line of questioning, because he doesn't recognize that source. Now we don't have anybody to tell this board whether these sources are accurate or inaccurate.
Can you go back to one point? What was the pamphlet that you described, a guide for non-Muslims about what Muslims do and say in prayers by Dr. Chaudhry and Robert Dixon Crane? Do you have a copy of that?
I wanted to be careful not to violate copyright laws with the author in the room, so no, I don't.
But wait, did you quote from that pamphlet
I quoted
before?
from it. We can pull it up.
Is that when you said this was the heading about
that
no
one
shoes?
sheet of paper that I gave you?
Yeah, I have that.
Yeah, but
may not be
you
there tomorrow,
previously
but-
gave a quote
Yes.
about not wearing shoes in the prayer hall, and you attributed it to the pamphlet. Is
Correct.
that the pamphlet written
Yes,
by
that's
Dr.
on page 8, and I can read you the other part in the back.
So wait a minute. So let's take a...
I got it. Okay. First, as to, you really had a three-part objection, I think. The first was as to the entire line of testimony.
And I made a distinction between what Dr. Chaudhry might have written as it was being quoted, and then the three objections that were presenting alleged evidence and alleged sources
I get it.
that are not Dr. Chaudhry.
I get it, but at the beginning of your objection, I think you were saying that you were unclear at first because you thought he was attributing a direct quote to a work of at least that Dr. Chaudhry co-authored.
That's correct.
It seems that he did. We could go back, but what he was talking about, the pamphlet, he read us the heading, and then he gave us the initial quote. So
to that extent, I don't object.
Right, but at the beginning of your objection, I think you were creating the impression that even what he said previously was not attributable to Dr. Chaudhry. So if I misheard you, I'm sorry, but that...
I think you misheard.
Okay.
Whatever he attributed to Dr. Chaudhry is coming... If he quoted it accurately...
We're both on the record, so we don't need to belabor it.
Okay.
So I do find that he was directly quoting a work that Dr. Chaudhry co-authored, so that the objection is overruled with respect to that.
Just before we do anything other, on that one, just the clean way to do this is you get a copy of what you quoted, even if you have to submit it after the facts. Submit it to the board, submit it to Mr. Raymar, submit it to Mr. Simon, and submit it to me so that it can be verified that the quote you read came from the pamphlet from Dr. Chaudhry.
Do I have permission to
That's
copy
nice.
it?
Can we get that permission as long
Does
as
he have
Dr.
permission?
Yes, you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chaudhry.
Well, you're overruling on something that wasn't an objection. I'm a little confused. I didn't think that...
He's not overruling
Mr.
anything.
Well, you just said
No.
you overruled one thing. I just want to be clear what you're stating.
No, I did hear an objection based on you initially thought that he was offering a quote. As the testimony went on, you came to the impression, or you came to the understanding that no, in fact, he was only quoting from these books that were
The clean way
linked.
to do it is if you said that, withdraw it. Because I
Let me-
heard it also, just to let you know.
Let me state succinctly what I said. To the extent that he's relying on something that Dr. Chaudhry said, I do not have an objection.
Okay.
To the extent that he is testifying to religious practice that is not based on something that Dr. Chaudhry said, which Mr. Drill now said we will document, then he is in effect testifying to religious practice outside of whatever Dr. Chaudhry said, without being an expert in religious practice. And he is now making clear that testimony that looked like it was being limited to something that Dr. Chaudhry wrote, in fact, is coming from sources other than Dr. Chaudhry, and we don't know anything about these sources. So that's...
Okay, I understand that, and I agree with you for the most part, except from the outset, Mr. Smith identified the pamphlet and then immediately started talking about books he had taken out from the Bernardsville and Basking Ridge Library. So I don't think there was any attempt to mislead that some of the information he was communicating was coming.
Maybe I didn't hear it correctly.
Okay.
I'll take the blame. I'm not blame, but now that we know that there are sources for what Mr. Cody was presenting outside of Dr. Chaudhry, I'm objecting because we don't know anything about the treatises, and Mr. Cody is not an expert on religious practice.
Okay.
Can I make-
Mr. Simon, we have to be consistent. Unfortunately, you don't have a dog in this fight, so. You don't. Wait 1 second, Mr. Smith. Do you have an objection to anything Mr. Smith is saying?
I do not.
Okay. I appreciate the candor.
As always, I wanted
So I think what's on the floor
are the books.
Objections to P4, P5, P6, and P7, which are the 4 books.
And for the reasons articulated, the objection is sustained as to those books because we don't have any information about the authors, whether they're recognized treatises, whether they're accurate. So it would not be appropriate for us to receive those into evidence and rely on them. Is there a motion by the board concerning that decision? Okay. So that part of the objection is sustained. Have we addressed everything?
No.
Wait.
No, there's now a pending objection to anything that Mr. Cody put into the record that is from a source other than Dr. Chaudhry, because now he doesn't have any treatises, and he's not an expert in religious practice.
Okay, except the initial thing read from the pamphlet co-authored by Dr. Chaudhry spoke to a prohibition of shoes in the prayer hall. So all that then subsequently happened was a corroboration of that original statement. You strip away these books, you still have that pamphlet which says that, and then the argument which stems from that is, I think, an appropriate point to make on closing as to what this witness believes is a hole in the applicant's presentation. He's pointing out what wasn't discussed, which is fair game.
Right, the corroboration is gone, the 4 books are gone, but the pamphlet remains, and he's going to be submitting it. So what we have marked for ID is P3, which is the website which explains, gives the title. We're not putting this in as P3. Once he submits the pamphlet, that will be going into evidence as P3.
But the factual premise of his entire argument is still supported by the pamphlet co-authored by Dr. Chaudhry.
I don't think we're disagreeing.
Okay, so...
I mean, to the extent that we don't even have it, so we don't know what he's submitting for Dr. Chaudhry. To the extent that Dr. Chaudhry submits it, I mean, it's quoted accurately, and he's arguing for that. Right. No objection.
Okay.
To the extent that the argument is going beyond that and relying on facts that are not in the record and not in the excluded pamphlets, then...
Okay. Based on what's before me right now, my preliminary ruling as to that third objection is that it's overruled. Is there a motion by the...
Put it this way. What do you want the board to do? Okay? What do you want the board to do with this third objection? Because do you want the board to say that the board's only going to rely on what's in the Chaudhry pamphlet and not the 4 books? Because, quite frankly, the board hasn't seen the 4 books. I'm the only one who has a copy. I'm going to keep them in my records just in case, but they're not going into the board's file. So do you want the board to do something other than that?
I think I've protected the record. I don't think the board should rule. And let's see what the pamphlet says.
Is there some other ruling you want the board to make
No,
now?
not now.
Okay.
Because, I mean, we're speculating, because we don't know what's in the pamphlet.
I thought you wanted the board to do something else.
Okay, so that was as to the third objection, it was overruled as my preliminary decision. Is there a motion by any member? All right, seeing none, that's then the decision on that objection of the board.
Just to make it clear, you got to get that pamphlet in.
I'll have it to you in the morning.
Okay.
Let me go back to something that was said, because when Mr. Khan has been up here, he's held himself out as a practicing Muslim and knowing the faith, representing that the 10% is an accurate reflection of who's going to use the voodoo room. His response has been a few times that I know because that's my religion and I practice it. Are we now saying that nothing that he has represented as a practicing Muslim should be recognized?
Based on the representation from applicant's counsel, Mr. Khan has no more expertise or authority to speak on Islamic practice and custom than you.
So that's correct. That would be your ruling. That's correct.
That is correct.
Ask the board if they want to make a motion.
Is there a motion from any board member on that point?
So then I guess then when Mr. Khan had testified that 10% of it may not be relevant because I think basically 100% of worshipers are going to use the voodoo room door, but his representation that 10% of people would potentially use that door to perform voodoo should not be recognized.
I stand by the comment I made 2 seconds ago. We're not going to beat a dead horse.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. So, finally, in concluding this section, my assertion is the applicant's proposal to use the prayer hall door as a public entrance is impracticable and runs counter to Islamic religious practice. The applicants provided inconsistent and incomplete testimony regarding its identification of the public entrance. Based on prior testimony, the voodoo room entrance fails to comply with the 20-foot separation from the road edge ordinance. And in my view, I think significant questions remain. regarding what exactly is the public entrance. Just a couple of comments on the fire safety ordinance, the clearance itself. I mean, as we all are aware, the northwest corners and northwest and the southeast corners of the proposed structure remain a safety concern. Do you want to take a break or?
No, we're
No,
getting
no,
air
keep going.
conditioning.
We're just putting some air
We're
on.
putting air on.
Oh, thank you. So I think in the February meeting, there was a lot of discussion with, especially with Chief Abrahamian, that why wasn't something said earlier. My assertion is that when the concerns were raised isn't relevant. The fact is that there's concerns there. You've had 5 experts testify that they have, or you have, through either written or verbal testimony from 5 experts, all have expressed a concern. And I know at the last meeting, somebody tried bringing this up, and we didn't want to talk about it, but there's quite the paper trail for legal exposure if something ever happened there to us tax-paying citizens of the township. Moving to the parking, my assertion here, applicant's proposal has 31 compact spaces and 76 non-compact spaces. The non-compact spaces have 9-foot widths. The compact spaces are permitted for long-term parking, are located in what likely is to be the most heavily used area of the parking lot. To me, the present issues exist is that the basis for allowing the non-compact spaces to be 9-foot widths is not clear. And I don't believe that compact spaces are permitted for short-term use, according to the township's ordinance. So what I would suggest is that the basis for allowing the 9-foot widths be clearer. Parking at a house of worship, it's my assertion, is short-term and it's not long-term. The compact spaces are not permitted for short-term parking according to the ordinance, and I think that exceptions are needed unless the parking is redesigned. So how do I get there? Here is the township ordinance itself, just again a copy of that. Like to point out that the township ordinance distinguishes between residential and non-residential. I didn't reproduce residential here since it's not applicable. It also distinguishes between when something on an open lot or in a garage, and it also distinguishes between short-term and long-term parking. And then, as we know, if the area in front of the automobile will not be used for anything else, then the parking stalls can be shortened by 2 feet. So there was a memo that was prepared by Mr. Banish and Mr. Sly regarding 9-foot width spaces. I'll note that nowhere in that memo does it address compact spaces. It seems to just focus on non-compact spaces and whether 9-foot widths are permissible versus 10 foots, which one might read in the ordinance. And I think the point here in this whole memo is that even if one was to somehow conclude that a short-term size could be used for a non-compact space, so i.e. a 9-foot width, that to me does not mean that those spaces are for short-term. And therefore, this memo should not be imputed onto compact spaces to suggest that compact spaces are allowed for a house of worship. So a couple of points that were raised in that memo. Township ordinance does not define long-term. I won't read these, but I wanted to talk about each one of them in the next couple of slides. So one of the things that Mr. Sly and Mr. Banish mentioned in their memo to support the 9-foot width for non-compact spaces was that the ordinance does not define long-term. Well, I think the ordinance does not define short-term either, nor does it provide specific time periods for short-term and long-term, but clearly the ordinance seems to distinguish between the two. It mentions those words and it gives examples. Ordinance provides employee parking as an example of long-term, and short-term it talks about, and I'll try to get more specific on that here in a minute, a retail parking. So in Mr. Kahn's testimony, it again has gone back and forth as to what these spaces are. In the September 30th meeting, when I was questioning him, he asserted multiple times that all the spaces in a house of worship are short-term. He later in December changed his testimony and made up what I'll call a definition of 30 minutes as being long-term parking and less than 30 minutes of being short-term parking. I think there was a little bit of discussion earlier about parishioners coming at lunch and rushing in and out, and I think that he has said that maybe they will be worshiping for no more than 5 to 10 minutes. So by his own testimony, it would seem, and even by his own, I'll call it made-up definition of short-term, it seems like these parking spaces would be used for short-term. This is just some other ordinances that I found in other townships, but it seems to be consistent with what we have here about what is a long-term space and what is a short-term space, long-term being employees and residential, short-term being more visitor types of parking. So what I see in this township's ordinance is consistent with what I think are in other ordinances, that there is a distinction, and it seems like residential and employee parking are more viewed as being long-term. The second point that I wanted to talk about that was raised in the memo was the greater width for retail is probably an acknowledgement that it better facilitates turnover and reduces internal circulation delays. That would seem to be true, but the question is, so why wouldn't that also apply to a house of worship? Anytime you have more room to maneuver, it better facilitates turnover no matter what the application of the use of the parking space is. And again, here by their own testimony that the applicant proposes, I would say, a higher turnover, 5 services a day, 7 days a week. And then probably more importantly is that, again, they have stated that on Friday afternoons they may expand to have 2 prayer services 15 minutes apart. So cars entering and exiting, again, I'm not sure how with 2 Friday afternoon prayer services, with perhaps, again, we don't know that this is going to be restricted at all, but if we had 107 cars for each of 2 Friday afternoon services that were 15 minutes apart, to me would suggest that that is short-term parking. And I have down here too that with 5 services a day, 7 days a week, it may very well be that there's more religious services at this house of worship than any other house of worship in the township. One of the discussions again in that memo is that the planning board has not imposed 10-foot width requirements for short-term spaces used for retail. Again, we don't know why that is. In that memo, it never addressed, why relief was granted or if it was even thought about. It doesn't give us any kind of indication as to what the conditions might be for relief being granted or again, if it was even discussed as part of those applications. I would suggest that what the planning board has done for retail locations, we only have retail locations addressed in that memo, that is not relevant for a house of worship. They're different uses. They're different, obviously, in what the parking space would be used for. I'll go back to the ordinance in a minute, but one could argue that the 10-foot spot only applies to retail. I think maybe if I just cover that now. If I go back for a minute, interestingly, in number 2, it says located on an open lot and used for short-term parking as retail. And then when we have 3 for long-term, it says such as employees. So a literal reading of this would mean that the retail requirement of 10 feet only applies to retail. And when you have a short-term non-retail use, the ordinance is not specific as to what to do in that circumstance. Whether you would apply the 10-foot for retail, or whether you would say no, it's more like somehow it's more like an employee. I don't want to say it's more like an employee because I don't think it is like an employee, but one might say it's not specific, and therefore, even though it's a short-term use, I can apply a 9-foot width. I also drove around and I checked out other houses of worship, not all of them, but it seems quite clear that in the township that 9-foot widths are used for houses of worship. Again, not knowing how we got there, I think I looked at 3 other houses of worship, and at that point I stopped when they were 9-foot widths. However, with compact spaces, it's kind of hard to read, but I took one of Mr. Zimmerman's exhibits when he was comparing the applicant's proposed use to other houses of worship in town, and I did go to all those houses of worship and noted that none of them have compact spaces. So if there is a house of worship in this township that has compact spaces, I could not find them. One of them that was missing was King of Kings on his exhibit, and I added that too. And there are no compact spaces anywhere to be seen, as far as I can tell. One of the other points in the memo, houses of worship parking needs and characteristics to bear more similarity to long-term parking. Arrivals and departures are concentrated. Again, if we kind of think about the employee base in the township, I'm not sure that there's many hourly workers that punch clocks and all get to work on the same time. So, I'm not so sure that if we're trying to analogize to employee parking here to say that these are long-term, that one would look to a house of worship and 4 or 5 services a day and say that is somehow similar to employee parking because people arrive and leave at the same time, because I'm not even sure that that's the case any longer in the workforce. And again, if there were concentrations and arrivals and departures, that seems to me to be arguing for a wider space, not a shorter space. So this goes back to perhaps how one might look at the 9-foot widths if they were saying that complied with the ordinance and didn't require, I guess it would be an exception in this case. One might have view 1 and say, yes, houses of worship are long-term, or 2, houses of worship are short-term, or view 3, which basically says that, as I mentioned earlier, it's not specifically defined in the ordinance, that the ordinance is only specific to retail locations and not to houses of worship that will be used for short-term, and therefore the 9-foot parking width is permitted. However, when we move over to compact spaces, again, I don't think that compact spaces are permitted in houses of worship because I do not believe that houses of worship are short-term parking. So a couple points here. Clearly, the ordinance differentiates between short and long-term. I think the ordinance and its definition of long-term parking is consistent with what other townships have done, at least some that I could find on the internet that specifically addressed the size of compact spaces, I should say, and when compact spaces can be used. Mr. Kahn had at one point asserted that 30 minutes was found in the township ordinances, which if it's in there, I sure can't find it. I don't think there is any definition of minutes as to where that is. 5 services a day, 7 days a week, lasting 5 to 45 minutes in a Sunday school. I think that would be short-term. That is not employee-like and one use per day and long-term. I mentioned multiple services on Friday afternoon. Common sense definition of what short-term is. And if the board was to say that compact spaces can be used here, then I think it would be basically take away the short-term and the long-term distinction because anything would go. Moving on to a different topic, I think this was touched on a little bit earlier tonight too about the exception that's been requested for the 31 spaces in the easterly row. Applicant's current proposal has paved parking spots that are 18 feet, but they're going to propose the wheel stop, which reduces the parking space by 18 inches within the 18-foot parking space. Mr. Sly had made some comments that wheel stops are not good. And if the overhang cannot be used, then the usable parking space is 16 and a half feet. So in the last year or so, I've become a parking expert. So this was after the first snow in November, what turned out to be relatively mild. And I saw this car parked, and it basically used up, these are 18-foot stalls, and it essentially, by the time the snow was plowed, we had some other comments earlier tonight about snow plowing, and I think the chief's own testimony also said that generally what happens when you plow snow is you lose space. Here's what I would consider a relatively modest-sized car, essentially taking up the full 18-foot stall after a snow plow. And there's a pavers in front of that parking space. Same thing here. This one I thought probably they should take their license away. This one, people will do crazy things,
I have an
right?
objection unless Mr. Smith is willing to represent to the board that he actually measured these spaces.
I did.
Okay, so let's go back then, just for the record.
I took my tape measure to work one day and I measured them.
Okay, let's go.
Then it should be in the record.
Okay,
Yeah.
go back to slide 57. Can you identify where that picture was taken?
It's 400 Campus Parkway in Florham Park.
It's like 400 Campus Parkway in Florham Park, and you measured that space?
I measured that row, not that individual space.
Right. And what was the
18-foot length. 18 feet?
That's. I understand it says it in the caption. I'm trying to get him to put it on the record.
Oh, I didn't see that.
You
I
measured
didn't
it?
see the caption.
Okay.
You measured it?
Yeah.
It's right on. Look at your slide 57.
I was looking at the...
I understand. Go to slide 58. Where is that picture taken?
That's 3 stalls in front of slide 57 on the same day, at the same time.
Okay, and those are also
Same.
the same location. Those are also 18-foot stalls.
Correct. It's the same row. You can actually see the gray car through the windows of the black
Oh,
car.
yes, I can. Okay, slide 59. Where is that taken?
That's 300 Campus Parkway.
In Florham Park.
Yeah.
And what are the length of those spaces?
I couldn't measure it because there was too much snow.
Well, but the caption says it's 18 feet.
Well, I think everything in the complex is 18 feet, but no, I did not measure that row.
Okay, you didn't verify that row.
No,
But
I can do that tomorrow morning.
correct.
if
That's
you
what I'm
want.
asking you to do. Can you verify that tomorrow
Yes.
morning? And when you send in the
Yes.
other exhibit, send in an email with the verifying the distance on slide 59. And then if Mr. Zamar wants to cross-examine you next month about that,
Okay,
he can.
that's fine.
All right. Why don't you keep on going?
So with respect to the exception, these are, this is Exhibit EX dated May 22nd, 2015, just some cut and paste I made of blow-ups of that exhibit to put in here. And again, I think we had a little bit of discussion about it tonight, but just demonstrating how tight the turning radius is for the fire apparatus. This is the southwest corner of the parking lot. And again, the blue lines come close to, these would be compact spaces. So again, if there was somebody who didn't park, who had a non-compact car in a compact space, or we had snow that would be abutting up against the guardrail and the bushes there, it would shorten those spaces even more. So even with making the turn and staying right up, abutting the curb there underneath F1, there's not much room to maneuver. Sorry. This is the.
Again, that last slide was slide 61. You're now on slide 62?
Yeah. 61 is right along the row of compact spaces in the southwest corner, sorry.
Okay.
And then 62 is the southeast corner. But again, I think there was an observation made when we were looking at CO3, but essentially, again, there's not a lot of maneuvering here, and these in particular are the spots that the applicant's requesting a variance on.
You mean an exception?
Sorry, you're right. Correction, exception. So again, with those spots are already tight. If you add snow to that, it's very conceivable, at least to me, that somebody could be sticking out, the back of the car could be sticking out into the drive aisle. That I might, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not sure it meets the ordinance anyway at the 24 feet. These are where the drive aisle is 24 feet. So just the observations here, fire apparatus mobility is already an issue without thinking about, again, I think these slide 62 was run without putting the car out a foot and a half. I didn't catch it, but I think at one point Chief Abrahamian has asked that we rerun the fire circulation with the car sticking out into the aisle, and I'm not sure that was ever done. So this assumes that car with the parking wheel stop will get all the way in the drive, and then there'll be enough room for file circulation behind it. So I think in closing here, I think the exception to me is a safety issue that there's already no room to maneuver, and granting an exception will only make it worse. I'll be done in about 5 minutes, probably 5-10 minutes.
Take a break for water? Is that like?
It's a great idea. The room's cooled down a bit, but not all the way. So in terms of sidewalks and aprons, there's ordinance 2136 dealing with sidewalks. Non-residential zone sidewalks shall be installed in areas wherever pedestrian traffic is anticipated to occur, such as between parking areas and buildings between those areas. So in particular, again, the troublesome spots with the design are the northwest corner and the southeast corner, that those basically abut right up against the fire lane. So if anybody was trying to get to the front entrance to the building, you'd have to walk out into the roadway in order to do that. I don't know for sure whether or not it meets the sidewalk requirements, but you might argue that, well, we've closed down the front entrance as nobody was going there. The one issue with this is the vested monitor in the back. I think there was some testimony at one point that the vested monitor would be both monitoring the U-shaped drive to make sure that there were no drop-offs, as well as helping students get out of the cars in the rear drop-off for Sunday school. And I'm not going to get into, in my mind, what a disaster that whole thing is with the drop-off being next to the handicap spots in an active driveway, but that wasn't something I was going to get into tonight, but I think that's an issue. So here, the vested monitor effectively can't even do his or her job because they can't watch, they can't see with the height of the structure, they can't see the U-shaped drive, and even if they wanted to go up there and monitor what's going on in the U-shaped drive, there's no access and no safe access up to the front. You'd have to walk out into the driveway to get there. So again, it's just another symptom of trying to put too much into this spot. So that, and then on wetlands, a couple of things here. I think I wasn't going to make an issue about it. I think at some point there was raised that there's a township ordinance that you can't encroach into the wetlands. I think when that was raised and Mr. Raymar objected to it, everything that he cited was not that we don't meet the ordinance. It cited that the board has never required anybody to get a variance for encroaching upon the wetlands. So this to me is just another point of what we've gone through with this whole application is that the ordinances, it's very difficult for at least someone like me to follow, where sometimes we enforce the ordinance. Sometimes 3 acres means 3 acres, even if the usable space is this. And sometimes we have literal application of what the written words are, and it seems to me like other times we don't even enforce the words. So it's very hard to figure out which ordinance it is and which one we're going to enforce and how we're going to enforce that and interpret it. The bigger issue, or the one thing I think is, I think everybody knows it, but I just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page, is the whole wetlands discussion in the transition area. Essentially, this whole project, as has been discussed, has been crammed in here. And so there's transition areas that have been used over to the south side of the wetlands. These whole lined areas are essentially wetlands transition area averaging, which is permissible according to NJDEP. But you can't average of having a width of more than 75 feet. The applicants used all of that up. And essentially, I think this is, again, part of the story here of trying to put too much into what this usable space is. So, the encroachment, as I read the plans, is 2,852 feet, and then they've done averaging for 31. So there's some piece of the plan I don't know how to interpret, but essentially, there's nowhere to go. So all of the exceptions that are being asked for, the safety features of the fire apparatus not being able to get around the building, all of this is a direct result of trying to put too much onto the piece of land and trying not to move any further into the transition area and encroach upon it because basically they're out of space. So rather than make something that's safe and functional and usable, everything has to be a fight because there's no cure to fix anything. So just in summary on this part, I think literally one might argue there's a need for a variance for the wetlands protection and the encroachment. I think the buffers with the detention basin in there, I think that's too large, obviously, and that essentially the buffers aren't being effective, and that's the whole reason for the need of the fence is because the buffer ordinance isn't met because the detention basin is just too large. In terms of the exceptions, I think one could argue there's a need for the sidewalk exception for sidewalks. In terms of the parking spaces, the stall lengths, one could argue perhaps 10 feet, but I think you could interpret that ordinance to get it back to 9. But I clearly don't think that compact spaces are something that's permissible for a house of worship on the fire standards themselves. I think the parking lots, as we talked about the NFPA, I think that the parking lots in terms of the aisle width and the length of the spaces don't meet the NFPA codes. And then we had the discussion about the public entrance. I'm not going to take the time to go through when one might grant an exception, being impractical and undue hardship, because quite frankly I'm tired and out of breath, but I think these are the requirements for that. So essentially, I was hitting on this earlier, but I think, essentially what happens is this project, I think Mr. Abadi mentioned, shrink it down. I think it's way too aggressive for the usable space in the lot, and that's what's leading to all of these compromises and safety issues. And as I said here, I think it's a jigsaw puzzle where you have to cut the pieces in order to get them to fit together. So my final slide in closing, this is something that a quote from Mr. Zimmerman when he testified back in April, and he sort of summed it all up as to what he saw this. So putting it all together, I think the exhibits, in my opinion, show that the applicant fits into the township, fits into what else has been developed in the township as far as houses of worship are concerned. I think it fits into the neighborhood. I think it will be a good neighbor. The scale of the building is very modest. Remember that the membership here is only 65 members, whereas other churches, several of them we know have significantly more members. So it's a modest church, house of worship, a modest membership. I think that all inures to the fact that there's going to be the same activity that might be experienced at other houses of worship in the township. So I would beg to differ with a number of the comments in here. When it fits into the neighborhood, I think if you take a drive around our neighborhood, you can leave the site, you can go Somerville Road, up Minebrook, out to Far Hills, down through Church Street. You can go all the way out Somerville Road to the other side of 78. If you go to Chester, on the way to Chester, everywhere you'll see a Preserve Liberty corner sign. So almost every single house in the immediate vicinity has one. I think when Mr. Wahi was asking some questions of Dr. Chowdhury a while ago, it doesn't seem to me like at least the people in the neighborhood are very thrilled with this development moving in. I think the 65 members, there's been testimony that that's not the case, that there will not be 65 members. We may have 2 services on Friday afternoon. And so I think everything in here is basically just the opposite of what at least the neighbors feel. So with that, the final thing I'd like to do is thank Fran and David Schley, even though he's not here, for all their assistance that they've given me in helping get documents together. And I appreciate the difficult decision that you have. And what I was trying to do here was raise a couple of points for you to consider. Thank you.
You got to hold on, Mr. Smith, because there may be questions for you. Okay. Mr. Raymar, you have questions for Mr. Smith?
No, I have one objection.
Okay, we have to. Okay, does this deal with P2? Because we have to deal with P2.
P2.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's your objection.
Yes.
Okay, so let's deal with it.
Okay, I think, except for one slide, I think, and except for what I've already objected to, I think it's fair argument that I'll deal with in my summation, but there's one assertion of fact on page 41.
Slide 41?
Yeah.
Mr. Smith, would you be able to bring that up on the screen?
Slide 41?
I think so.
If not, we have top claim.
Oh, he'll get there.
That's slide 41. Lower right-hand corner of each slide.
Yeah, there it
has
is,
a number.
there it is. I don't know where the 5 experts come from.
That was the memo, I probably have it in my stuff, but that was the memo where it was Janet Lake and Chief Abrahamian were on the from, and then there were the 3 experts, was Ms. Pavlini Newell.
Chuck Bizzaro.
Oh, the committee.
Yeah, the committee.
Right, the
They're not
committee.
experts, they're members of the fire
Fire
department.
committee.
So you want him to correct
Can we-
slide 41?
Can we redact and edit?
The board can write on it whatever it wants to write, because I think my objection is accurate. It wasn't 5 experts. It's an assertion of fact. I'm trying not to overwhelm the board.
You know what,
with-
Mr. Smith, would you consent to a changing of that text from experts to
Whatever you want to
fire
make it.
department members?
Fire department personnel.
Well, I think it was more than,
Well, they were on the committee, the review
more than
committee.
members, I think.
They were all ex-chiefs, I think.
Yeah. and I
Former
think-
chiefs.
And structural engineers, and they all have a specific, but you could have it as the chief, Janet Lake, the fire official, and 3 committee members.
How's that?
The memo,
Put their names.
but the memo identified whatever
they were.
the title of the committee was, so perhaps we could just conform it to that.
Instead of 5 experts, name Janet Lake, Peter Abrahamian, and 3
members of the Liberty Corner.
members of the
Liberty Corner
Liberty Corner
Fire Department Committee.
Fire Department Committee.
Review committee.
I think it was
How's that?
review committee.
Mr. Raymond, how's that?
That's fine.
Okay.
So with that change, then no objection to P2N?
I have no objection.
And then I owe you copies of Dr. Chowdhury's pamphlet where it's applicable, and I owe you the measurement for the parking
Right,
space.
but you owe Fran
I'll get it to Fran.
with a copy to me.
Okay.
And a copy to Mr. Raymar and a copy to Mr. Simon.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll
so
have it to
Fran,
you tomorrow
P2
morning.
is now in evidence, and you can put your tag on it now. Let me just see if there's any other leftover. Right, because you're submitting the pamphlet, that's going to be P3. Okay, we're
Okay.
good.
Anything further, Mr. Raymer? Questions or any other objections? Okay. Any questions from anyone else? Ms. Pavlini?
I just have a question, Mr. Quinn. Mr. Cody, could you go back, Mr. Cody, I was trying to follow Mr. Raymar. Mr. Smith, could you go back to the slide where you, I think you had it marked as variances, where it was the transition area averaging? I just want to get clarification,
Yeah, it wasn't,
or maybe it wasn't marked as
the
that.
variance was for encroachment on the wetlands, not the transition area.
There it
Back,
is.
there it goes. No, go back. I want the percentage of that, that's what I want.
That's right
Can
off
you-
of,
Explain that to me.
I'm trying to see if I can do it without bringing up an exhibit. Can we bring up an exhibit? Can we go to CO3?
Because are you suggesting that the information we've been given, my understanding that is incorrect, that they're actually exceeding what they're permitted to do by the DEP, which I know
No,
supersedes
they're not
our
exceeding
jurisdiction?
it. They're 300 under.
Oh, just, okay,
Point
okay.
is, it's not all-
So they've encroached by 2,800, but they've transitioned 32. So,
Yeah, gotcha.
So
I
they're
got it,
in
got it, got it.
compliance,
Thank you.
but there isn't
got
any
it.
room to maneuver.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was my
Buffer averaging.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone for this witness? Mr. Quick?
No, he's better than a lawyer.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Okay, that's where we're going to leave it tonight. What's our next meeting date,
Okay,
Mr.
so
Drill?
let's do some scheduling. The next hearing date is May 19, 2015, but not the entire hearing. I believe, Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the meeting where we also want the board to have a work session on the proposed 2015 housing plan?
That is
Fair share
correct.
plan? Let me finish my question. Is that the meeting?
That is correct.
Okay, so it's my suggestion, because I'm just looking out in the public, and probably there's at least 50 people here. So I know that Mr. Millay, for example, asked if they could do the housing plan element, fair share plan first and this second. But then, all these people would have to wait. So, again, Mr. Millet may get mad at me, but I think the board should decide, but it would only be Mr. Millet and those other members who are not participating that would wait if we did ISBR first and the housing plan element second. This is not my decision. I'm just putting it out there, but you guys should decide which is going first and which is going second.
How long do you think that work session reasonably should be?
Well, you might think that I'm crazy, but I don't think it's going to take more than an hour because this is, do you think I'm wrong? You think it's going to take an hour and a half?
Mr. Banish, your thing is not on.
I think it's really difficult to estimate how much time that discussion's going to take. I think an hour is optimistic. I think an hour and a half is certainly within the realm of possibility. It's the sort of subject that could actually take a few hours in a given evening, but I don't think that we're going to need to devote that kind of time to it.
The issue is this. If members have questions that require me to give legal advice, and I think that the only way I can give the legal advice is to go into closed session,
You have to empty the entire room.
then we would have to empty the entire room. And I don't know if you guys are going to ask those sorts of questions or not, but that's why, again, it's up to you. But
Logistically, it makes more sense to do it, to do this first.
Mr. Chair. So, going along with what Mr. Drill said, what Fran has in the proposed schedule is work session to begin at 9:30 p.m. on the master plan. I think that is the same thing you're saying.
Correct. I'm just saying, Mr. Millet's not here. I'm just bringing to the board's attention that he had
something different.
Yeah, he had
So
a request.
I'm agreeing with you in saying that what
Don't agree
Fran-
with me. I'm just saying he had a request to have the.
understand.
This is.
I think what Fran has down as the proposed solution is the best choice.
Okay.
That we start the
All right, so it's-
master plan at 9:30, which means,
Excellent.
as you're saying, that the ISPR will go before that.
Mr. Millet has been denied.
By Mr. Santoro, if he's
If he's listening.
listening and taking notes.
So that's May 19th. The applicant has extended until June 30th, and we need some more dates, because just by a show of hands, how many more people want to address the board on this application?
Okay.
So we're approximately 20 people. So I think we should just be realistic about this and try to schedule
At least two more
meetings right now. So Fran, when's the next available meeting after May 19th?
July 21st?
Just what's happening in June? What's happening on June 2nd and June 16th?
June 2nd. I think it fits in with what we were talking about. We would need to have a master plan public hearing. And then when we initially started talking about this, we put that public hearing after the two other applications that are scheduled on that night. We've had a suggestion to reverse that order, but needless to say, that does not impact this application.
Just so the applicant understands, the New Jersey Supreme Court on March 10th, 2015 decided the motion in aid of litigants' rights in the COA case, and that impacts an awful lot of municipalities, including Berners Township, and that's what this 2015 housing plan element fair share plan is going to have to deal with, and it was not contemplated at the time we were discussing schedules. This is, it has to get done. So what about June 16th?
I believe we told Fellowship Senior Living that they would be on that date.
Right. So July, what is the first available date? July 21st?
We have another minor subdivision that's been waiting around to be heard. We put them, certainly tentatively, on July 7th. So the next date for which we have nothing so far is July 21st.
Okay, so if this goes on July 21st, that could be the only application on that night?
Yes.
As of right now, yes.
Okay, so what about August? How does August look?
August, nothing is scheduled for August 4th or August 18th. I am aware that we might not have a full board.
Okay, so let's just do an informal poll of board members are people going to be here on August 4th?
Oh, yes.
So 2 no's, but again, judging on the fact that there's 20 people, I don't think we're going to get up to the point of a vote. So my suggestion is to make July 21 and August 4 the 2 dates and get an extension out to the end of September.
You want to do the 18th?
I'll tell you what, why don't we also put on,
In exchange for something.
We have to leave some room for something else, so we can schedule September.
so July 21 and August 4, but we're asking the applicant if they will extend till the end of September.
We're going to give you the entire month, okay? We're going to give you all of August.
Okay, so extend to the end of September. We're now going to also tentatively give you also August 18th.
I would suggest that we have to leave a gap for something else and do September 8th instead of August 18th.
No, let's.
No, we're going to year 4.
July 21, so again,
We're going to
this,
have other applications.
Randy, so we'll see what happens at the time, but,
Okay.
you know,
I think.
for members of the public, if it's closer together, these people have been,
Yeah, I think because we're in the public comments section
Yeah.
of the application, it makes sense to keep the momentum as strong as we can.
so, again, to be clear, the hearing on the application is now going to be extended to May 19th, which we had before, July 21, August 4, and August 18th. July 21 and August 4 are contemplated as entire meetings. August 18th, right now, could be a partial, we don't know. And the applicant has extended out to the end of September, and there's not going to be any further notice. This is the notice being given.
May 19th is from 7:30 to 9:30.
Yes, good point. May 19th is from 7:30 to 9:30. Thank you very much.
No further notice. Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda, comments from members. Ms. Pavlini.
Mr. Plaza, I would like to recommend that the planning board send a letter to the administrator and the assistant administrator, Denise and Bruce, requesting that we receive longer arms on our microphones at the tables, an additional microphone for each table, as well as maybe a pocket mic for a witness.
Terrific, yeah.
Because
Excellent.
We have been dealing with these microphone issues for years.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye. Okay. Anybody opposed? No. Okay, Frank, could you draft that up for our review, please? Thank you. And
Listen, I'm going to defer to...
any other comments from members? Comments from staff? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, we're adjourned.